Silence your cell phones. We don't need them ringing, please, during the meeting. If your cell phone rings, we will ask you very nicely to donate $50 to the Wildlife Fund. Thanks. I'm going to do a roll call. Commissioner Bell? Present. Commissioner Haskell?
Present.
Commissioner Lundvall?
Here.
Commissioner Mai? Commissioner Masterson? Commissioner Roberts? And I'm Commissioner Jolovich. Members of the public who wish to address the commission on any agenda item, please fill out a comment form located at the registration table and hand it to one of the department staff who will forward it to me. Assisting with the meeting today is Renee Shell from the Lander region. If you're participating via Zoom, you should have submitted an advanced comment form prior to the start of the meeting. If you would like to comment on an agenda item, please contact the host of the meeting. As we work through the agenda, the public will have the opportunity to address the commission. To ensure everyone has an opportunity to speak, and as a courtesy to others, please limit your time. And commissioners, make sure your little red light's on when you speak. I'm real good about that. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I need a motion to approve the commission, the minutes for the commission meeting.
Mr. President, I would move the approval of the commission meeting minutes and the approval of the executive session minutes with an amendment.
Second.
What's the amendment? Oh, that, yeah. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Director Bruce.
Good afternoon, President Jolovich, commissioners. Good to be with you today. It feels like we were just at a commission meeting. And after a very much enjoyable spring break in March, I was able to attend the North American Fish and Wildlife Conference. We sent 6 staff to this conference in Ohio this year. Very important. This is a place where both the Central and the Pacific Flyway meetings meet, as well as working a lot on our grizzly bear and ESA issues, networking, partnerships with our federal agencies, other states, and conservation group. Long but productive meeting. I wanted to note that, as you guys know, tomorrow we will be presenting our recommendations for hunting seasons. And I really want to say thank you on behalf of the staff and myself for all your engagement in that effort. Tomorrow is sort of the end of the process, but not the start. And your attendance at the local meetings and visiting with regional staff is just really much appreciated and noticed. This, as you guys know, is the opportunity to set hunting seasons that really meet the demands of our public. And so it's important that we get it right. After the Management Council met on April 1st, we became informed of our legislative interim items. And for the most part, most of those are at Travel, Rec, and Wildlife, as we refer to as TRW. As we talked about last time, we're going to be primarily discussing our revenue issue and our fiscal outlook. We're also going to be talking with them and working really closely with our ag partners in a conversation about habitat issues on private land. This is a follow-up to all the transferable license conversation, and we'll be working really closely with our landowners and ag producers during that conversation. I did want to point out too, at the next meeting on May 27th and 28th, they also will be having an informational session on the Semino Pump Storage Project. That'll be on the 28th in Casper. Other topics that they'll be discussing throughout the interim session, different trapping reform items that have come up in the past, and then a lot of governance issues, such as public meetings, records, retirements, GIS, that have the potential to influence and impact the department as well, that we'll be watching closely. I did want to mention too that we have started to get quite a bit of feedback regarding the Wyoming mule deer conservation strategy. Lots of enthusiasm building around it and lots of public comments. Wanted to let you guys know that we'll really be moving that into a more productive conversation with hopefully some good actions at the statewide Mule Deer Summit that'll occur in Casper on November 13th. So wanted to put that on your radar and the public's radar as well. And then I also wanted to thank you guys for your support. As you guys know, I'll be leaving the commission meeting early tomorrow to travel to DC. Thank you to Brianna Ball with the Wildlife Fund, who helped in the instigation and coordination of this effort. And then Rhiannon Jacob Peck, I think she's back there. There she is, yeah. For all the work and preparing us so that we have a productive meeting within DC at the end of the week. The purpose for going is 2 congressional briefings, one on wildlife crossings and the need for a sustainable funding source for wildlife crossings. Secondly, regarding state and tribal wildlife grants. And these grants come from the Fish and Wildlife Service, and they're based on our state wildlife action plan. You guys might remember that we're in the final stages of updating our state and wildlife action plan. We do this every 10 years. And this allows us to pull in funds for species identified in that plan. Roughly $800,000 to $900,000 a year we get with state wildlife action plan grants. And this is an opportunity to talk about the value of those dollars to the state of Wyoming. Without those dollars, there is the chance that more species could be in jeopardy of being listed for the ESA, Endangered Species Act. This plan and these grant opportunities are really about how do we keep these common species in the state common? How do we learn knowledge about them that'll allow us to do that? Excited about those 2 opportunities to educate both our congressmen and women and also their staff. When we are in Washington, we'll also be working with Representative Hageman on gaining support for her grizzly bear delisting bill, and then having the opportunity to meet with our delegation staff as well. I think we have a total of 8 meetings so far lined up, and then talking to the Undersecretary of Ag regarding our feed grounds on our forest lands and our big game habitat pilot program. So excited to see where that goes, and hopefully it's a productive time in DC. Another thing I wanted to mention, the Wyoming Fire Chiefs Association was not able to be with us here today, but they received one of your commission tags that netted around $40,000, and then they donated $3,000 of that back to the Access Yes program. So just want to acknowledge their contribution. And then lastly, before I stand for questions, I want to thank Commissioner Lundvall. Ashley, thank you for serving as president for our last year. And just want to say your style of leading this group is much appreciated. I think we had one of the really most controversial commission meetings that we've had in a long time with the landowner license, and your way of leading that meeting with grace was well recognized. And so to thank you, I have plaque and gavel to offer you. So with that, would people join me in congratulating Ashley? Thank you, commissioners. With that, I'll stand for any questions. Good.
Good afternoon, President Jolovich, Commissioners, Director Bruce, Meredith Wood, Chief Fiscal Officer, here to present agenda item number 3, which is a request by the Commission to transfer 6% of the revenue in the lifetime license account to the Game and Fish Commission Operating Fund. So under Wyoming Statute 231501C, the commission has the authorization to transfer up to 6% of the balance of that lifetime license fund over to your operating fund for allocation in future budgets. With that, at the end of May, we project the amount to be just over $437,000. And I would stand for any questions and request approval to make the transfer.
Mr. President, I would move to approve the transfer of 6% of the lifetime license fund balance and the net revenue earned from the sales of alternative enterprise merchandise during the fiscal year into the Commissioner's operating fund.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Jolovich, Commissioners, Director Bruce, Alan Osterlund, Chief of Fisheries. And today I have another update for the SPEES Cool and Warm Water Project. What I'm going to be covering today is what's been happening since the March Commission meeting. And then we'll look at, go over some construction oversight to hopefully close some gaps you all might have on how that's going to happen and what's going to go on there. So as we go, if you have any questions, let me know. And as always, as this project goes on for the next couple of years, please feel free to ask, call anytime if you have any questions, or I might not have the answer, but I know people that do. So since last month's meeting, the crews and the sections have been moving pretty fast. It was either the day after or the day after that engineering sent out the notice to Sletton that they will be awarded the bid. And then the culture section immediately started to work on removing the covers at the existing raceway. So if you haven't been out there, there's some old raceways that were there that had covers on them. And they were in good shape, had steel roofs, and they tore those all down and are going to repurpose those covers around the state. I think Sheridan's getting one for their H&A. Lander H&A is getting one. For Du Bois, Casper AIS is going to use one, and then Clark's Fork is going to use one. And I want to take a moment to just thank the other divisions that assisted in that. It was a big effort. Wildlife Division assisted, Services Division assisted, our AIS personnel there, as well as our culture folks all chipped in to take those out, and they got them down in a pretty short time. And by doing it ourselves, they estimate they saved the department about $40,000-$50,000. And then the use of those repurposing will probably save the department another $100,000. So kudos to those guys. On 4/14, April 14th, there was a coordination meeting with Sletton and McMillan to start the dialogue on working out how some of the project logistics will work. Basically, this was opening lines of communication between the three of us and set the groundwork for efficient submittal review. McMillan Engineering has completed putting together what is called as a conformed set of plans and specifications. This basically takes all the information gathered from questions and answers that came up during the bidding process that took place and puts it all in one place. Engineering's been talking with Rocky Mountain Power, making sure that they understand what our needs are going to be for the facility out there as far as power, and getting that process rolling. The contract for Sletton has been sent out to them, as I mentioned, for that they've been awarded, and that is in the process. And last that our engineering section had heard was down at the AG's office, so it's running through the process. And then the contract has also been signed by McMillan for construction oversight, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes. So as far as construction oversight is concerned, there will be always department employees on site, and basically because they live there. But our superintendent will be there all the time. This project has the benefit of having a lot of personnel, like our culture section supervisor lives in Casper. And in fact, his house is right across the river from the facility, so there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to have a spotting scope set up there, and he'll be watching things as they proceed. And the assistant supervisor is in Casper as well. Our chief engineer, Lauren Wooden, anticipates being there a couple of days a week during construction. So you can expect daily coordination on the project every day. So I want to go over some construction oversight stuff, and I have handouts for you, which I failed to bring up. Maybe I get Dave to bring those up. They're sitting right there with paper clips on them. So as you might recall, last meeting, I gave you a bunch of numbers on that PowerPoint on how much a project's going to concern and is going to cost. And one of those things in there is that we had budgeted $1,240,000 for construction oversight, administration, training, and startup. So McMillan Incorporated, which is the engineering firm, will be providing the construction oversight. And these are some of the efforts that will be included, and you can follow along there on those handouts. Submittal review and approvals for all the contractor supplied equipment, the pre-engineered metal building, installation of materials, concrete mix, etc. So this is different. This is contractor supplied. Our owner supplied equipment is going to be provided by us, and you might remember that that's going to save the department a lot of money by us purchasing that equipment, not having that markup. And that has all been ordered, and purchase orders have been issued for that owner supplied equipment. And we're just waiting for final submittals coming from the suppliers. And hopefully that won't be too onerous. Project coordinating and note-taking for project meetings, contractor schedule and review and approvals. Pay application review and approval, so they'll look at everything that's been submitted by the contractors and review and approve from the Sletton and before to get us for our final approval. So there'll be two steps there. Ensure compliance with contract requirements through their sub-consultant, WWC Engineering, and they have an office in Casper, which is another benefit. They're responsible for overall project inspections, rebar inspections, elevation checks, etc. Through their, also through the sub-consultant, they will be responsible for material testing, soil compaction, concrete testing, asphalt testing, etc.
So as I mentioned in the 1.2, there was training in startup. McMillan will be involved in the training, testing, and startup of all the equipment, which will be pretty huge for a project this size. And then lastly, McMillan and WWC will be on site at least 3 days a week during the project and will be responsible for documentation of project activities to include weekly progress reports. And in addition to that, I've provided you with an attachment C, which is from the contract for McMillan, which is a amendment. There's amendment 2, which is a scope of work. And those 4 pages there spell out everything that the engineering firm will be responsible for as far as construction oversight. And lastly, I want to mention a construction oversight, which is, in my mind, a pretty huge deal, is that University of Wyoming has offered one of their project managers to assist us with the project as his time allows. And for me, that offer was pretty huge, that a sister agency would be willing to assist in a project like this. Doesn't happen very often, and I really appreciate the university and Commissioner Maya and offering that up. So with that, I'd be willing to try to answer any questions.
Mr. President, if I may. Alan, I appreciate it. I need some help understanding. McMillan is working for us. We're paying McMillan to oversee, make sure everything's being done correctly. I mean, in a nutshell, is that fair?
President Jalovich, Commissioner Masterson, yes.
All right. So what is the relationship between, and thank you, Commissioner Mai, and also to the trustees of the university for allowing one of their project managers to come and assist on that. Maybe we could send some form of a correspondence on behalf of the commission to the trustees, Mr. President, and express our appreciation for the cooperation and the help from a sister agency. But thank you for facilitating that. How does it work? How does the University of Wyoming project manager work in relation to McMillan? And I'll throw that to you or to Commissioner Mai, whoever cares to answer it.
President Jalovich, Commissioner Masterson, getting out of my wheelhouse a little, but I will attempt. And talking with Lauren Wooden, our chief engineer, there's going to be lots of meetings when the construction phase starts. And before then, I can't remember when he told me it would be starting, but you might remember we're going to be, the first phase is July, which is going to be removal of the raceways, and then September is when the building construction. But is my understanding that Mr. Leatherwood will be assisting and participating in meetings with our engineering and our culture section and the engineering firm throughout the process, as long as time allows for him to participate. And he can offer his expertise with his project management experience and offer his guidance if necessary.
So, Mr. President, the other thing, I think that's right, Alan, and John. I think the other advantage, I think, of having Dan Leatherwood involved in this is UW has a whole team of professionals that deal with construction all the time, whether it's, smaller projects. I'll say small, and a lot of these projects are $5 to $10 million major maintenance projects. So pretty much all UW's work is pretty big, and as a result, we've got a team of engineers and other areas of expertise, I think that can serve as advisors if you so choose to use them. I think that's one of the values that Dan brings with him. And again, the trustees, I think, were very generous in making this available, and you guys use it as you see fit. We'll make sure that our team is available for you if we can be of assistance. But I think Dan's planning to meet Lauren, I think actually on Friday up on the site to kind of go through it, and some of those owners meetings that you're going to have on the front end of it. I think Dan brings a different perspective, but also an industry set of eyes that he can, he's a career, construction industry career guy that we hired from John's former employer. And, I think, just having multiple sets of eyes on this, and possibly having, other ideas how to supply unanticipated needs could be helpful. And if not, then, no loss.
Alan, McMillan works for us. Who oversees McMillan?
So President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, as far as the direct oversight of them, I'm not completely sure, but I imagine it would be Chief of Engineering.
Okay. I'm wondering about the chain of command, only because I'm sure everybody here has in some way, shape, or form touched construction. And under budget and on time never happens in construction. Unless it's, it's the pool at the university. So what I'm getting at is what we all know, which is things can get out of hand. Unanticipated things can pop up, changes need to be made. And I really want, I guess I want your assurance that at least one set of eyes, if not more, is watching every single penny that goes into this. Because these are hard-won sportsman's dollars. You know this. I'm not lecturing you. You're not my audience right now. These are hard work. These are sportsman's dollars that we have to take very good care of. And as our budget gets tighter and tighter and tighter, we need to be better and better stewards of where it's going. So please be the jerk homeowner that you've always wanted to be when it comes to change orders and spending money. I know you will be. This is one of those things I just had to get out. I'm very concerned about cost overruns. High, inflation's not getting better, et cetera, et cetera. So please, have a bunch of people watching this. And I would appreciate some sort of intermittent update at a meeting on how we're doing budget-wise. It's not that I understand cost overruns happen, but we need to try to keep them to a minimum. But I'd like to, Mr. President, have some sort of doesn't have to be every meeting, but just let us know what's going on, how we're doing on budget, how things look. Thank you, Mr. President.
So President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, I will assure you that we will use our due diligence and make sure that sportsman's dollars are well spent. And we do have our 10% or 5% contingency built into the budget as well. And the plan is to have an update at every commission meeting on how the project's going along. So full transparency. And Sean, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, so this will be the third pretty successive major project that we've taken on in the last 6-7 years. So between the Cody Regional Office, the Jackson Housing Project, and now SPEES, we've learned a lot throughout that process of these major projects. And one of the things that we always do throughout the construction phase especially is we have weekly meetings. So those weekly meetings are a chance for us to communicate with the contractor, the design engineer, the oversight folks, and all of that while we're going through the process. And that's typically when we are identifying and rooting out issues throughout the construction phase. There's always issues that happen. I can say unequivocally that this job will have issues that we face, whether it's cost overruns, that we need to challenge throughout that process or whatever it is. But that weekly meeting and that constant communication that Alan was just talking about are the way that we deal with all of that. And we can certainly keep you on the loop in a similar way that we did throughout the Jackson Housing Project. The other thing that we've learned along the way is how to hold folks very accountable to the contracts that we have with them, and that we lean on that document pretty heavily as we go through, throughout the construction phase of the project, and make sure that we are spending sportsman's dollars in the most responsible way possible. So that's just kind of how we deal with that throughout the process. I'm sure that the project management help from the University of Wyoming will be helpful with that as well as we go through that process, just because somebody from the outside looking in always has a good perspective that we can always utilize. So I just wanted to add that that's basically the main way we tackle the communication phase of the project. So with that, I'd take any questions, but turn it back over to Alan.
President Jolovich, I might, and I'm just skimming through the scope of work and stuff, but could somebody remind me when this is supposed to be, the completion is supposed to be of this facility, and when's it going to be up and running? I mean, what can the sportsmen and people in Wyoming say, hey, in X amount of time, when are we going to be up? When are we going to be running? When are we going to be producing fish? When can we expect to see fish in our lakes?
So President Jolovich, Commissioner Roberts, so completion date for the project will be October 2027. And immediately after that, we'll start, after the testing phase of equipment, we'll start going into walleye production. And it is our hope that of April 28, we will be having fish in the water.
President Jolovich, Alan, can we, could you provide the commission a monthly, just a brief monthly report that kind of lays out what the spend has been versus the budget? Just so we can kind of track to completion on that. And then I assume there will be change orders on this. And as you run into those change orders, can you keep us apprised of those, please?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Maya, absolutely.
And I'd qualify that, Mr. President, and say maybe keep us posted on change orders that exceed 50,000. I don't think we want to see a list of change orders for changing doorknob styles or something, but something in excess of 50,000, and then just sort of a running total of where we're at on our contingencies on the project.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
So, first of all, I'd like to thank UW Board of Trustees for their offered help. And second of all, I just want the public to know how important it is that we get this done. A big part of this is keeping aquatic invasive species out of our state, because in general, people don't realize how bad that problem could be if it got here. Another part of that, we're going to have more opportunity for sports people being able to raise more fish rather than have to buy them.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. Well, good afternoon, Commission. President Jolovich, members of the Commission, Director Bruce. I'm Ray Brady Hoff, the Deputy Chief of Services, and I'm going to just give you a quick update on property rights, and we're just going to touch briefly on the Table Mountain acquisition that we're working on over by Yoder, Torrington Country. All right. So the Table Mountain parcel is 368 acres bordering Table Mountain WHMA, located really outside of Yoder, almost to the Nebraska line. With this acquisition, we are looking at purchasing the full 368 acres, and with that comes 84 acres of water rights via the Goshen Irrigation District. We have a center pivot on this property, which is actually a newer pivot, so it's newer infrastructure. And those, along with those water rights, and that center pivot, that will help also with the Table Mountain wetland system that we have out there, which is crucial for our migrating birds. We also stock pheasants out there as well. The asking price, because it was out on the market, was $759,000. We put it under a purchase agreement for $750 pending the appraisal. So with that, right now, the appraisal is in process. We should hopefully have it by the end of next week or the beginning of the week after. And assuming we have no issues with the dollars, we'll be able to continue moving forward with that. If the appraisal comes back differently, then we'll renegotiate with the landowner. We have some money donated towards this project. Two Shot Goose Club out of the Torrington area has donated $35,000 towards the purchase of this property. Along with Ducks Unlimited, will contribute up to $120,000 towards the purchase price as well, depending on the appraisal. And then the remaining funds will pull from our conservation stamp fund. We have notified Goshen County that we are in the process of trying to acquire this property, which is a requirement with that statute. Sorry. Here's just a few pictures of the property with Table Mountain in the background there. That's the center pivot. There is actually some wetlands on the prairie, on the pasture land that's out there as well. This is the center pivot that's currently out there. It's got alfalfa under the pivot, which if we acquire this property, we'll put in a farming plan and move forward on different possibilities with that. And then there's also some dry land crops out there as well that we'll probably plant into food plots or dense nesting cover of some sort at a later date. Along with this, we do have this out for public comment. We're required to put it out for 4 weeks. That will close the beginning of May. And then we have it with the Torrington Telegram, along with the Casper Star Tribune, and on the Game and Fish website for comments, which we'll bring to you at the May meeting when we ask for approval. All right. And with that, that's just kind of a quick overview, but I'd stand for any questions you guys have on this property or the process.
Mr. President, I got one. This on the water situation, what was it? We have one well out there is already for the game and fish.
Yeah, so President Jolovich, Commissioner Roberts, so we do have a well out there that we drilled years ago in cooperation with Ducks Unlimited to help supply water to the wetlands. Initially, it was around 100 gallons a minute. It has dropped off, and we're limited on how much we can run that due to the North Platte system being right there. We do have some fields out there with irrigation water on them as well that comes from GID that helps supplement that when we're doing food plots. And the majority of the water for the wetlands comes off of Dry Creek. And we get that water after October 1st, and then it shuts off again later. We basically get one run to get water in those ponds.
My understanding is one of the, because of the lakes are starting to dry up quite a bit, and one of the big concerns was trying to get water to them. And I don't know if is this going to help the situation, or is this going to be just a different matter than that?
Commissioner Roberts, no, this will absolutely help get water into those wetlands. There's a drainage ditch, so as that pivot runs, and if it's not running, that water bypasses. It goes into our drainage ditch, which flows right into one of our ponds. And from there, we can spread water out across the wetlands.
President Jolovich, Ray, I want to tell you guys thanks for doing this. It's a great addition to that habitat unit up there. In my opinion, it's a great addition. I think the way you guys went about this and secured help from the two-shot hunt and your private donors and all of that, your nonprofit donors. I mean, this is a poster child for how you conserve property for waterfowl and for hunting purposes. And I think for the long run, this is going to be just a terrific addition. I really thank you for all your work on this.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
President Jolovich, Commissioners, Director Bruce, it is with my distinct pleasure that I have a couple of service awards to present today. Both long-term division employees and as with a lot of our folks, just exceptional employees. So I will start out with Bobby Compton. Bobby, want to come up? Bobby is the regional fisheries supervisor in Laramie, and he's got 20 years of service as of February this year. So Bobby grew up in Trinidad, Colorado, and earned his bachelor's degree in fisheries from the Colorado State University. And yeah, we won't hold that against you, but being a ram and everything. Before attending graduate school, Bobby worked as a research associate for Colorado State and also as a fisheries technician for the Idaho Fish and Game Department. He earned his master's degree at the University of Wyoming through the co-op unit, so he redeemed himself somewhat there. And his master's study work was done on Muddy Creek, south of Rawlins, down on our Grizzly unit down there. And a lot of that research that Bobby did, we're using for management purposes today and restoration of some of those species of fish in that drainage. Bobby started as a department contract biologist in Cheyenne, then as a regional fisheries biologist for 2 years. Then he was on the aquatic assessment crew for 6 years before moving to Laramie as a supervisor there. Bobby over the years, hasn't grown weary of wearing waders and still enjoys fishing and floating rivers, hunting and traveling with his family. So with that, I want to thank Bobby for all his great work for these last 20 years and hopefully another 20 to come. So President Jolovich, Commissioners, Director Bruce, I have another one, another long-term employee, Mr. Steve Gale. Want to come up, Steve? So Steve is currently the aquatic habitat biologist in Laramie. And we're just fortunate that we've had him for the last 20 years. And we're also fortunate that they're having a aquatic assessment crew meeting here today. So he's got his compatriots for support. And I think they've been helping him write his speech and everything. So Steve received his bachelor's degree from the University of Nebraska in Lincoln and his master's degree from Montana State University working on the West Slope cutthroat. Steve worked for the Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, National Park Service in Yellowstone, Montana Cooperative Fisheries Research Unit prior to coming to us. So a tremendous amount of experience and his first position was a senior fisheries biologist in June of 2005, and he was stationed at that time in Laramie, which he still lives. I won't list them all, but Steve has been a very productive member of many committees within the agency. He has been recognized for his work with the American Fisheries Society, both in his field work and also through his leadership work through the society. And in 2013, he received the Laramie Region's Peer Recognition Award. So with that, I'd like to congratulate us for the 20 years of Steve's great service. We're really lucky to have him in many roles that he's had with the department. Thanks, Steve. Yeah.
They was shutting the mic off on me. Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the commission, Director Bruce. Today, I'd like to recognize Brian Parker for 20 years of service to the department. So it's my honor to give Brian this award. Worked with Brian the entire time I've worked for the department, and just a little background on Brian, which is a little unique. Brian actually came to us from the Forest Service as a supervisor directly to the Lander region. He actually holds 2 Bachelor of Science degrees, one in forestry and one in geography, and has a master's degree from the University of Montana in forestry. So he's well educated, and he came directly to us as a supervisor and excelled pretty immediately. His early dedication and effectiveness were recognized in 2007 with a Peer Recognition Award for the Lander region, and then again in 2019 as the Services Division Employee of the Year. His commitment and track record of success naturally paved the way for his well-deserved promotion to the Habitat and Access Branch Chief in 2025. And as the branch chief, he now spearheads the largest unit within the Services Division and manages the over 500,000 acres of commission-owned and managed lands and 200 public access areas, which comes with a ton of responsibility and planning and all kinds of things that the sausage gets made that you don't get to see. And Not only does he have all of the wildlife habitat management areas, but he also is responsible for working with all the 8 regions on the maintenance of their buildings. So all of his folks do that as well. And so he has a large job, and he does a really excellent job at doing it. And we're really, really lucky to have him. He's also been involved with some pretty major things in the department's history, one of which that I always like to mention is the Whiskey Mountain Conservation Camp renovation. He was very instrumental in that taking place and being successful. He was there almost every week working through that project with the contractor and the administration from Cheyenne. He was very involved with the Spencer Moriarty 10-year plan that you've seen today. I know Commissioner Roberts and Commissioner Haskell got to go out and see a huge portion of that WHMA and how that's been very successful. Been some other great projects, the Table Mountain Conservation Easement, the feral horse gathering near Spencer Moriarty, was very instrumental in helping implement the early opener for antler hunting and just some other major things throughout the department that have been pretty landmark. And beyond all the technical administrative achievements, Brian's very well known for his intellect. And in fact, one of the things that always makes me chuckle, and it's just a simple slip of the keyboard, but his name often gets spelled brain, but it's very fitting for Brian. And I always like to see that. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I always like to think that it is a little bit. So with that, please join me in extending a well-deserved and heartfelt congratulations to Brian for his 20 years of service.
President Jolovich, Sean, next time, it'd be easier to list what he doesn't do. If it would keep it shorter.
Thank you to Sean for leaving the mic on so that I don't have to fight with it. Mr. President, members of the commission, Director Bruce, my name is Dan Smith. I'm the Wildlife Division Chief. Good afternoon to you. I have 2 awards to give today. The first, I would like to have Matt Lynch please come forward. So Matt is here today to receive his 35-year award, and it's actually, he earned it last June, so it's almost 36 years. And so Matt has been a role model for me for as long as I've been with the department. I use him as an example of hard work, of dedication, and he's probably done more to recruit youth into hunting and angling than anybody else in the department, but I'll cover that a little bit more later. Matt began his career with the department in 1989. He's been a technician position at Sabile Research Facility. He was an I&E technician in Cheyenne in 1990. He served as a biologist technician and an enforcement aide in the Green River region. And then he started his tenure as a game warden in Worland in 1992, and he has been there since that time. So you talk about a staple to the community. He has served that community for 34 years, correct? So just trying to highlight some of the things. I won't be able to cover everything that Matt's done in his 35-year career, but he started the Paint Rock Hunter Mentor program in 2000, which pairs youth with mentors for hands-on training in outdoor ethics, biology, shooting skills, and actual hunting. The original program boasted a big game hunting success rate of over 90% and was one of the first programs to evolve from the department's hunter stewardship working group into a tangible action. Since 2000, Matt has mentored over 100 first-time big game hunters throughout the state. Matt also started the Jakes program, which was juniors acquiring knowledge, ethics, and sportsmanship. Since 2006, Matt has coordinated this annual youth exposition with the National Wild Turkey Federation, drawing 50 to 60 participants. My kids participated that when they were little. And he took that and then evolved that into the Medicine Lodge Outdoor Day, which from 2011 to 2018 saw over 700 kids participate, hundreds of volunteer hours, and Game and Fish spends a lot of time doing that each year. Since 2007, he's been involved in the 5th grade outdoor day, where he took the 5th grade classes in Worland and now has expanded that to Burlington and Meeteetse, where he goes and does an outdoor day with them, teaching them different outdoor skills. Then he started the Youth Hunters Care Program, where youth hunters harvest doe deer and antelope. They process the game themselves, and then they donate to needy families throughout their communities. Over the past 20 years, 4.5 tons of meat have been donated through this program, which has also mitigated damage on many of the private lands in the Worland area. He started the Archery Loan Program since 2018, providing over 140 bows for extended use to participants. He's also done the Young Hunters Care Program since 2008, where he arranged for mentored hunts for underprivileged youth and harvested deer processed and donated to local food banks. As a law enforcement guy, he's a hard worker, top hours for many of the months out of the year. And over that period of time, you may see some guys work really hard young in their career and then kind of start to slow down later in his career. Matt hasn't slowed down a bit. He still works hard every day. I hope he never retires because he continues to do great work for the department. The Access Yes program was started, as you know, in 1999, and Matt signed up just a ton of areas in his district, his game warden district. That was before we had Access Yes coordinators or technicians. Matt was meeting with landowners, signing up property, and then hiking all their fence lines himself, putting up signs. And he was really worried about the wind. The wind doesn't really blow in Worland like it does in Cheyenne. But when I took over the program in the Cody region, I started finding all these plastic signs put up with 3-inch lag bolts. It took me more time to get the lag bolt out with a little piece of plastic after the wind took it. So we finally got him to move to just screws. Sorry, my phone turned off on me here. He also, he's raised 3 kids in the Worland area. He's dedicated in the 4-H program. He's married to his wife, Cindy, and they've just done a great job in the Worland area. He's an integral part of the Cody region, and I just want to thank him myself for all the work that he's done and for his 35 years of service to the department. So now, all right, the second award I have is the Shakir Safari Wildlife Officer of the Year Award. And I'd like to ask John DeSonier and his family to come up, his wife Allie, and his 3 kiddos, Landry, Joanna, and Madeline. And while they're coming up, I'll just tell you a little bit about Shakir Safari Club International. They are a nonprofit foundation focused on wildlife conservation, education, and protecting hunting heritage. And each year, this club asks each state to select an outstanding game warden who has shown exemplary performance of his or her duties in protecting of wildlife, enforcement of game laws, and implementation of conservation programs. And John is our 2025 Shakir Safari Wildlife Officer of the Year. There was actually 4 nominations this year for this award. And John's such a humble guy that when I called to tell him that he got the award, he said, "No, you're mistaken. I nominated somebody." And I said, "Well, somebody nominated you as well." So what I would like to do is just read that nomination. It came from some of the folks in the Lander region. Just try to highlight some of the work that he's done. It is with great pleasure that we nominate Lander Access Yes Coordinator John DeSonier for the Shakir Safari Officer of the Year Award. John shows tremendous dedication to the department, wildlife resource, and the public he serves. John also has a great ability to communicate with all types of individuals, ranging from kids and adults in hunter education programs, local business owners to hunters and fishermen in the field. It is for these reasons and many others listed below, we feel John should be considered for this prestigious award. An access coordinator's responsibilities go beyond law enforcement, with a lot of time being spent on general, public, and landowner contacts. John consistently goes above and beyond to ensure his duties and responsibilities to the Wyoming Game and Fish Department and the Lander region are not only carried out, but also done in a fashion that gives the department and all enforcement officers a positive image. John is firm but fair in every instance, and we have witnessed and heard positive comments about his interactions with both the general public and violators. Of special note, John has spent a considerable amount of time the past couple of years working on a complicated law enforcement case in the region. This case spans violations in multiple game warden districts over multiple years. John was able to make the case based on a tip for a separate violation in 2024, and during that interview was able to discover the suspect's involvement in many other violations. He pulled a law enforcement crew together, including multiple game wardens, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Tribal Fish and Game, and the investigative unit. A search warrant was obtained in late 2024, and numerous illegal wildlife were documented and seized, along with 2 vehicles and multiple phones. This is when the work truly began. Working with the team he brought together, they were able to go through thousands of photos and text messages from multiple phones and conduct dozens of additional interviews with other suspects and persons of interest. Through this investigation and associated coordination with other wardens in the region, they were able to locate multiple kill sites in the field and tie those back to heads seized from the resident and photos and text messages on the cell phones. In total, over 15 major wildlife violations have been documented and 4 key players identified. Many other potential violations have been identified and will likely come up during the pending court case. Charges have been filed for 11 of those violations, stemming from 2 of the suspects residing in Lander. Once these are complete, the other individuals will be followed up with. John is also instrumental in helping train and provide mentorship to new game wardens in the region, as well as others around the state. He has always taken the time to work with new wardens and other new department employees to provide a positive role model and ensure they have someone they can talk to throughout their career. This is why John knows what's going on in the department before many of the rest of us do. It's for all these reasons we are honored to nominate John for the Shakir Safari Officer of the Year Award. So as part of that presentation, the biggest part of this is a big pewter plate that he can display at his residence. Would you like to give that to? He also will receive in this box a lapel pin that he can wear, a certificate saying that he's the Officer of the Year. And there's a plaque at our regional headquarters in the hallway there that lists each officer each year that receives this award. And if I'm not mistaken, Victoria already has that up for this year. So he will get that. In addition, the winner of this award receives a $20,000 death certificate that if he's killed in the line of duty on the job, it will be paid to his estate. So with all that, I would like to congratulate John DeSaunier on the Shakir Safari Wildlife Officer of the Year Award. What I have, so.
Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at about a little after 15 after.
Brian Parker, the Habitat and Access Branch Chief. I'm going to introduce to you Nathan Lindsay. He's our Sheridan Region Habitat and Access Coordinator. He's going to present to you a brief presentation on a lease that he's been working, or the Sheridan Region has been working together with Johnson County to provide basically access and enforcement on a portion of the monument public access area on Lake DeSmet.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Jolovich, Director Bruce, members of the commission. I'm Nathan Lindsay. I'm the Habitat Access Coordinator for the Sheridan Region, and I'm here today to present to you a lease agreement, shoreline lease between Johnson County and the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission on the Monument PAA. You'll see on this map, Monument PAA lays on the shores of Lake DeSmet between Sheridan and Buffalo. So it was purchased in 2007. It is a deeded portion that we own. It's approximately 15 acres. It gets really high use, 30 to 40 boats during high summer use. We've seen a drastic increase, especially since COVID out here, not only by our consumptive users, but a lot of non-consumptive users. It's a great fishery. You can catch trout, kokanee salmon, walleye, bass. We have amenities that include a boat ramp, a boat dock, and an outhouse there. And we're currently working with Johnson County to come up with a solution to issues that we have on a shoreline regulation that Johnson County has around the lake. There's the middle location on the map is Monument Point, PAA. The other two locations on the southern end are owned by Johnson County. However, we have provided ramps and docks in those locations for boaters and fishermen to access. And we're also working on a north end location with them currently, where we will also be providing a ramp, a dock, and an outhouse at that location as well. So a little background on this. Lake DeSmet is owned and operated by Johnson County. Previously, that was Sheridan County, but that transferred ownership over to them here a few years back. It's used primarily for recreation as well as irrigation water storage. Johnson County owns the lake and all of the land under and surrounding the lake up to the 4620 elevation mark. Anything beyond that point would be private land, including the Monument Point PAA, which is our deeded portion. Historically, it's been used for boaters and anglers, but as I mentioned before, we've seen a drastic increase in a lot of other uses, from paddleboarders, picnickers, everything else. And so these areas have become highly congested, and there is a land boundary issue, which I will show you here moving forward. So Johnson County has some shoreline regulations in place that manages all of that property below the 4620 around the perimeter of the lake. Originally, when we purchased this, due to those ownership boundaries, we only owned down to the 4620. So it in essence creates this sliver of land around our PAA that most people think is game and fish property and part of the PAA. However, it is not. So we have some jurisdictional issues that have occurred here for years that have gone kind of overlooked for the most part, but with the increased use of the area, it's something that we wanted to work with the county to address and make sure that we had access going down to water's edge, which we historically think was the intention of the PAA when we purchased it. On this map, everything in blue is our Monument PAA. Everything in red is the area that is in question below the 4620. And so we are working with Johnson County to come up with a solution, and that solution is a shoreline lease. One of the other issues that has been occurring is Johnson County, because of the shoreline regulations where they do not allow docks, driving on the beach, things of that nature, private landowners from around there say, why is this occurring at Monument Point PAA? Well, that's a good answer. So we've been working with them to come up with this solution. You'll see in the picture that everything in the red is the rough boundary of the 4620 elevation, and most folks pull down right onto the beachfront property. They get out, they have their picnics, they cast their lines in the water. A lot of our constituents out there that use this are elder folks, and so we really don't want to change that. And with a lot of aging anglers, we want them the ability to be able to pull down onto this shorefront property, get out of their vehicles, set up a lawn chair if they wish, and enjoy Lake DeSmet, catch some fish. So by us going into the shoreline regulation lease with Johnson County, it will allow us to enforce it, whereas before that was county land. It would have to be enforced by the sheriff's department. This gives us enforcement ability. It also gives us the ability to regulate certain activities as we see fit in the future if we deem necessary to change the use that occurs out here. And it'll maintain access to the water's edge for all users going forward. This is a long-term lease. However, it is not perpetual. It will remain in effect, though, with Johnson County as long as both parties agree. It can be gotten out of with a 90-day written notice. Johnson County's been a great partner. We've partnered on all the boat docks and locations on the south end as well as this new north end location. So there is really no intention that this would ever go away. The only thing that the county asked of us is to place boulders at the edges of this border perimeter so that if folks do drive down onto the shore, they cannot continue on down the rest of the shoreline at Lake DeSmet. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I stand for further questions.
Mr. President, if I may. Thank you for this presentation. So the ask of Johnson County to place the boulders that would exist at the 4620 line to prevent people from going all the way down to the water's edge?
So not the interior portion of that line. Let me pull back up here. So just on the very north boundary and the very south boundary.
Okay.
Folks will still be able to drive down onto the shorefront if we choose to allow them to. They've already provided the boulders, so all that I have to do is go out there with our equipment, place those, and then folks cannot continue north onto other private property or onto other Johnson County property from there.
Oh, that makes sense. So other landowners are experiencing people trespassing. It's assuming that that's all commission-owned land. So, okay.
Yep.
That makes better sense. Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. President, Nathan, thanks for the work on this. Johnson County Commissioners let elderly people fish other places in the lake next to the water?
If there is access, yes, to that shoreline.
I have some really good friends that are Johnson County Commissioners, so I just thought we had something earlier this year, I think, or maybe last year, that the monument at the top, like where his easement comes up, there was some damage or there was something with that, like right where the monument was. Do you know if they got that all figured out? I think it wasn't actually on our easement property, but I didn't know if.
So Commissioner Bell, members of the commission, President Jolovich, yes, the county was working on that. It actually sits in the county road right-of-way where the monument technically lies. It is just off the corner of our commission-owned properties.
Okay. Thanks for the work on this. It's a pretty popular place.
Mr. President, if I may, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I have no problem whatsoever with this. I'm just curious whether or not there were discussions with Johnson County about us purchasing this. If we already own the other chunk, was there any discussion about just purchasing this sliver to make it all the same?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, yeah, we had those conversations with them, and in speaking with their attorney, Mr. Crago, they were not in favor at the time of selling us that sliver of land around there, and they chose instead to go with a shoreline lease that would allow us this access, but not the rest of private landowners around the lake the same afforded access on their portions. So.
Thank you. And for the Johnson County Commissioners who are listening in, I'm not being critical of that decision. I was just curious if they had any interest in it. So thank you.
Mr. President, just one more question. So at that 4620, they own the water. I mean, the water can continue to go down. They're going to continue to own that. We would have to continue to buy property if we wanted to always have access to the water. We would have to, depending on water levels, we would have to go to wherever the lowest point is to own. I like this idea, I guess. I'm glad that we're working through this. And yeah, that's probably not a question there. I just want to make sure I'm correct on that.
Commissioner Bell, President Jolovich, yes, that is correct. And that was the issue in talking with him that we did come up with, because this lake can be drawn down for agricultural purposes. If it continues to go down, that is an infinite changing boundary line. This is the easiest way for us to get around that issue. So as water levels come up or go down, at least we still have access to water's edge.
And then as just to follow up, Mr. President, so as they go down, we'll just add more boulders.
Yep.
Commissioner Lundahl.
Sorry. This is going to sound like a random question, but obviously I understand not letting people on the private land, but did you say there are parts of the shoreline that belong to the county that are still public? They just don't want people driving on it?
Commissioner Lundvall, President Jolovich, yes, they have shoreline regulations in place where there is to be no motor vehicles on shoreline. That includes the entire perimeter. However, most of our constituents of the elder generation, it is easiest for them to drive down to Monument, and then there's a handful of places they can pull their vehicles down and get out to fish. And so we really did not want to discourage that or take that away from folks. And the shoreline regulation agreement with Johnson County allows us to still allow folks to drive on that small red portion around Monument, PA, if we so choose to.
Right, okay, and I love that. My question then would be, when you go to place the boulders, going between where they're allowed to be with their vehicles and where they could possibly walk or use a non-motorized wheelchair or something like that to get to the public area, are you planning on leaving space between the boulders for that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, Commissioner Lundvall, President Jolovich, yes, there will be designated places where it will be walk only because it is for resource damage as well as just difficulty getting vehicles there. There will be places we block off, but everything else will be accessible by foot, wheelchair, or with gaps in between boulders so that vehicles can access those designated areas.
Okay, great, thank you.
If you have no further questions, we are seeking your approval for the shoreline lease, and we ask that you vote yes.
Do we have a motion?
I'd make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have just, I guess, one point for clarification. Is there a dollar amount on this lease that's being requested or has been thrown out to further this, I guess?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Haskell, no, there is no dollar amount associated with this. This is just a good in-kind heart agreement between Johnson County and the commission.
Very good. Well, thank you for that point of clarification, and I am certainly in favor of this as well.
Yes.
Well, we've had a motion, it's been seconded. No more discussion. We have a vote on to approve the shoreline lease between Johnson County and the commission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed, motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. President, I didn't hear Masterson or Bill vote. Did you vote? Oh, okay. Okay. Could you be a little louder?
Perhaps, Mr. President, the distinguished commissioner from west of the Continental Divide should listen. Just a suggestion.
Okay, that's you two? Okay, you're up.
President Jolovich, members of the commission, Director Bruce, as promised last month at the enthralling presentation I provided on Springer WHMA, I foreshadowed the presentation on the management agreement at Rawhide WHMA. Luckily, you have Jerry Cowles, the Laramie Habitat and Access Supervisor here to provide the presentation rather than hearing it from me, who's much more expert in that part of the world. So, Jerry Cowles.
Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you. Commissioner Jolovich, members of the commission, Director Bruce. Today we got a quick 15-minute presentation on the Rawhide WHMA management agreement. I'm Jerry Cowles, Habitat and Access Supervisor. So Rawhide WHMA is 8 miles west of Torrington, and the North Platte River runs through the heart of Rawhide WHMA for about 5 miles. We have 816 acres of game and fish fee title, as well as 11 acres of access easements across private lands. The commission acquired Rawhide WHMA back in the late 70s when the construction of the Gray Rocks Reservoir was constructed. Tried to offset some of that habitat loss during the construction. Rawhide WHMA has 3 parking areas, 4 hunting blinds on a first come, first served basis mainly for waterfowl. We have a 14-day camping limit on Rawhide. Hunting is a restricted weaponry use out there. So we want archery, shotguns, and muzzle loaders due to the close proximity of the neighbors. There is lots of wildlife viewing out there, especially this time of the year when we got all the migrating species coming through. We have a access trail goes through the awesome habitat out there. And then there's also some fishing and floating opportunities down the river. And then here are the hunting areas for Rawhide. The North Platte River habitat or riparian habitat is crucial ecosystem spanning all the way from Colorado through Wyoming to Nebraska. Here on Rawhide, we have a phenomenal cottonwood gallery, willow complex, and when the river changes its course and whatnot, it cuts down some braided channels across the Rawhide unit. Right now, it is critical habitat for a bunch of the bald eagles flying through, chasing their prey. Bunch of waterfowl species. We got deer, mule deer, and white-tailed deer over there. We do have some beavers doing some phenomenal work that we probably can't do ourselves. And then there is various aquatic species out there in the river system. In past numbers, we've had peak migration of 15,000 geese, 4,000 mallards on the unit. And then some of our habitat work that we've done on the unit, we've removed a lot of invasive species like Russian olive, salt cedar, and then here in January, we found some buckthorn, which is similar to Russian olive, and we're working to get rid of that. We work a lot with Goshen County Weed and Pest, doing different experimental biocontrols, or we're doing a small 1 acre cactus treatment, seeing what things we can do along the river system and not affect any of our downstream neighbors. We also get volunteer groups out there to help us plant some native trees, shrubs, and do some grass seedings. All right, so on one of those parking areas, the parking area to the south, Game and Fish Commission has 17 adjudicated acres of water rights, and historically we have farmed 9 of those acres through different means of agreements and barter contracts since 1998. And I guess below the current alfalfa field, the tailwater that comes off the irrigation would go down across some food plots that are left over for the wintering wildlife and whatever species needs to use those. And then if there's extra water beyond that, then it flows across the Cottonwood Gallery and back into the North Platte River. Yeah, so the Rawhide Management Agreement will utilize Game and Fish Commission water rights on 9 acres. The tailwater spills down across those other food plots. Our goal is to have a crop rotation. So if we're in alfalfa right now, we can switch to small grain crops, but we want to do whatever is best for the soil, for the habitat out there on the unit. Some of the leasees' responsibilities for the crop, they have to plant the seed, they have to fertilize it, control noxious weeds. And then as well, the leasee cannot file for any damage claims done by wildlife. It has to remain open to public access. And then we do a payment system. We call it an Area Improvement Project Agreement, or AIPA. So instead of receiving a payment, the leasee would bring their expertise onto the unit and reinvest those funds into infrastructure, habitat-related stuff. Like in the past, we've upgraded irrigation infrastructure. We've converted fences to wildlife friendly with the funding, put in food plots, more seeding efforts, things like that. I guess that's on this slide. And then when we send these management agreements out, we use another process called request for proposal to make it a competitive situation, try to get the best bang for our buck, select the candidate that gives us the best criteria on the rawhide WHMA. And then having this as a leased out program, we see great benefits, especially if it's long-term. There'll be less paperwork on our end of things. We don't have to keep doing the revolving door with this. We get a leasee that's gonna, put their heart and soul into this and want to see their the improvements on their own. And historically, we've had a bunch of the neighbors that are close to the units. They come in and do these lease programs for us. It is very efficient with their time as well as our time. So like on the rawhide unit, we would have change the water out twice a day. And when we don't have to have employees go over there and move the water, we can focus on other like Springer or Table Mountain units and improve those areas. All right, I'll stand for some questions.
Mr. President, if I may, this is a new lessee, I'm assuming?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, yes. So the previous barter contract, we've done it on a year-to-year basis, and we'd like to go for a long-term 5-year with an option for another 5 years.
Okay, with a new lessee.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that based 5-year term with option to renew? Is that kind of going to become the standard form agreement that we're looking for?
Commissioner Masterson, yes, that is what we are looking for.
Okay.
And that is if we like what the leasee is doing in the first 5 years and we're getting the benefit, the commission's getting the benefit for this, then it'd be awesome to extend it to another 5 years.
Right.
So.
And are in the management agreement itself, how do you measure whether or not they are complying with the terms of the agreement? I mean, it's easy if you say, I'll contract for 100 widgets. If you give me 100 or not, we know. But how do you measure the compliance with the management agreement by the lessee?
Yep. President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, we have on the ground field staff, and they are constantly in communication with these lessees. No infrastructure upgrades or whatnot will be done without written consent of a department representative. So.
President Jolovich, if you might. So if a lessee puts, let's say, a pivot on their thing, and then they, for the next time, don't get the next time that we lease it out, do they keep their pivot or do we keep their pivot? Everything that they put in, we keep?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Roberts, that is correct. The commission keeps the infrastructure that is put on commission lands. We have the same set up with the stuff over at the Yoder School on the Springer WHMA. The lessee had acquired the pivot, and then over 6 years of his lease payments is paid towards that pivot that was installed. And then that is staying with the property and commission property.
President Jolovich, if I may. So as I understand this, and thank you for this presentation and doing this work on this. As I understand this, this does not include any grazing at all. It's just the crop that they harvest will then be removed off for whatever the leasee uses it for.
Correct. President Jolovich, Commissioner Haskell, that is correct. The lessee can harvest the crop and sell it, do whatever they want to do with it. It's only for the grain crop, alfalfa field, and there will be no livestock on there, or we will come back to the commission for that in a different lease.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, I don't know, I guess the rancher brain in me kicks in a little bit here, but also feeding. I'm under the assumption there's probably not any commission or department feed grounds that are within, say, 150, 200 miles of this. So taking this hay off of here to truck to feed grounds is probably not very cost effective, it'd be my guess.
President Jolovich, Commissioner Haskell, that is correct. Our closest facility that could possibly use the hay would be the Seville Research Center, but this would have to be certified weed-free before it'd have to go to that unit. And cost effectively, you are correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. No more questions.
If that's it, do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I would move to approve the 5-year management agreement with an option to renew for an additional 5 years on the Rawhide WHMA to improve the wildlife habitat. Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? If there being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the Commission, and Director Bruce. My name is Anna Miller. I'm the Executive Director with the National Bighorn Sheep Center up in DuBois. And I'm very excited to be giving you guys some updates on what we've been up to. We have a lot of stuff going on. We had a great year in 2025, and we have already hit the ground running in 2026. Our most memorable project so far this year has been our museum renovation project. This has been a project on our radar for over a decade. We had some other projects that took funding priorities, but we really hit the ground running on this project in July 2024 and did most of the groundwork in 2025, and our new exhibits were installed in March of 2026. And we have never done any sort of renovation to our center. All of the exhibits are original to the building when we opened in 1993. So our old exhibits were a little bit sleepy. They needed a little facelift. And as our goals evolved with the center, our exhibits also needed to evolve. And we had the funding for this with the Beck Learning Center. We did decide to forego expanding the building and take those funds and then use them to update our exhibits. So I'll give you a second to see these before images because the after ones will blow your mind. This is what our center looks like now. It is much brighter, it's beautiful, and it has a very distinctive flow. It immerses our guests into the biology, ecology, and conservation of wild sheep more than it ever has. This took a lot of manpower. Our last year's summer intern was a huge help in this project. She helped me comb through all the content. We had to type up everything by hand to trim it down. And I did have some assistance from Daryl Lutz. He helped with the disease display, which is on the right-hand side, to really make sure that the messaging was clear. And phase 2 of this project is to update the lighting. You can see that some of the light fixtures on the left-hand photo, they're all different. I'm pretty sure we have 50 different light fixtures. None of them match. So we did receive some grants from the Opportunity Shop and the Wyoming Wild Sheep Foundation to purchase and install new lighting, they'll match, which will be incredible. But they will also be more cost-effective. Since they'll be LED, they'll use less energy, and they will be better on our taxidermy mounts than the incandescent bulbs are. So we are very pleased with the outcome of this project, and if you're ever up in Du Bois, please stop by. We'd love to take you through. And then next, I want to touch on our beautiful mural that was painted in early 2025. It was finished in May, and this is going to be phase 3 of our exhibits and museum renovation. We want to add a second mural to our center as well. And the wheels are always turning in my brain on how we can add more to our center. So that's upcoming, but that's a long-term goal probably for 2027 or 2028. But this mural was a really great addition to add the beauty and the vastness of the Torrey Valley up in Du Bois. And of course, I already mentioned her, but I have to talk about our wonderful intern that we had last year. This is Megan Yarborough. She is a senior at the University of Wyoming. She will be graduating this May. She has been our 3rd summer intern that has been at the Sheep Center, and all of the interns that we've had are such inspiring individuals. They are motivated, they have big goals for themselves, and they have been wonderful to work with. So Megan did get to work with us at the Sheep Center, but she also got to shadow professionals in the field, those with Wyoming Game and Fish Department, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Shoshone and Arapaho Tribal Fish and Game. Her favorite shadowing experience was the helicopter stalking. She got to go onto the reservation and watch the process of the helicopter stalking. She did work at a fish hatchery when she lived in Arkansas, and it's nothing like they do down there. She loved getting to see how we stalk the alpine lakes in Wyoming. And following graduation, Megan will receive her bachelor's degree in environment and natural resources, but then she is moving on to the University of Wyoming College of Law this fall to hopefully study environmental law and practice environmental law when she graduates. So we have hired our 2026 summer intern. Her name is Kara Wiskowiak, and she'll be starting with us at the end of May. So we're very excited to see this program continue to develop and grow. And then the top of that says, moving forward, it's our 2026 goals. We are always looking to expand our outreach and reach our mission goals at the Sheep Center. So our goal is to reach 30,000 individuals in 2026. Last year, we reached over 25,000, with half of that being youth outreach. So our main goal is to reach all 23 Wyoming counties and expand our Wyoming reach as far as it can go. Now, with us only being a staff of 2, we are working on some virtual programs for the eastern side of the state if we can't make it there in person. Of course, we love doing in-person presentations and events, but virtual if we can't get out there. And next, we would love to host 6 in-person events. We do have some coming up next month in May. The Teton Raptor Center is coming down to do a presentation for us on May 20th. And then we are working with Sarah Domek and the Nature Conservancy to do a program on migration, which we'll host on May 26th. And then we did have our annual meeting, which was on April 11th, and we screened carrying capacity, and Daryl was there to answer some questions for folks. We're also working to improve our collaborations. We are working with 3 new partner organizations, specifically the Jackson Hole Land Trust, but we're also working to support our current partners and work with other organizations as well, specifically the Wyoming Wild Sheep Foundation and the department as well. And we want to expand virtual learning opportunities with presentations, programs, and webinars throughout our state, the region, and the country, which includes sending our traveling education trunk that has been all over the country. It's been to Georgia, Colorado, Michigan, Pennsylvania multiple times, and right now it is in Wisconsin. It's a great way for those that have never seen wild sheep to interact with different items such as skulls, horns, hooves, and hide. And of course, we want to host 30 kids at our annual Camp Bighorn. Is our largest place-based education program. And registration for that opens on May 11th. It's shaping up to be a very great year this year. We have kids that want to come back for their second and third year in a row, which shows how much they get out of this program. And we really want to thank you for the use of the Whiskey Mountain Conservation Camp. It is the perfect setting to host that camp. And we would not be able to do all of this without the support of our partners and our donors. And I really want to give a special thank you to Commissioner Mai and Commissioner Haskell for those commissioners' tags that you gave us last year. That helped raise over $50,000 for our conservation education programs. So we wouldn't be able to do that without you. And with that, I can answer any questions if you're interested.
Mr. President. Anna, thank you for this. So you said any questions. So now I was coming over to the Ferris Mountains the other day and on Sunday, and I saw a white, like in this picture, the difference between this, not this just might be faded, but there is some sheep that are lighter colored. They almost look like albino. I was talking to a Game and Fish employee the night prior. She told me what that was called, but I can't remember. Do you know what that is?
Commissioner Bell, I believe that would be leucistic.
That's right. Okay, thank you. Now, how do you spell that?
We do have an albino bighorn sheep at the sheep center, a true albino.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes.
You answered. Thank you. That's great.
Mr. President, if I might, Anna, thank you for this presentation. You mentioned that you had received a grant from the Opportunity Shop. Who are the opportunity? What is the Opportunity Shop?
Commissioner Roberts, that is part of the Episcopal Church Outreach Ministry program up in Du Bois, and they have awarded over $400,000 to nonprofits in Du Bois for various projects. So they have helped fund Camp Bighorn in the past and other update type projects that we've done at the Sheep Center.
And that's very nice of them. It just with the department being and the department owning the building, that as long as everybody is conscientious about where we get the money from, what it represents, because we are part of that. So if it's something contrary to the department, I'm hopefully everybody's mindful of we're not accepting money that's contrary to the department's mission and goals.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Comment about the sheep foundation.
We have a comment from the public.
It's they're just online.
Oh.
We can take it at the end of the day.
Pardon me.
We could take it at the end of the day.
Is it specific to the sheep thing or is it?
Let's wait till the end today.
All right. Mr. President, members of the commission, and Director Bruce, today I just have one policy revision to present to you for approval. This is the last policy we have to present for approval for the Comms Ed division, so we're very excited to hopefully have this one done. That's policy 3E, the Awards and Recognition Program. So I'll have just a really brief PowerPoint presentation showing the changes to the policy. They're not major changes to it, but I'll go through those real quick. So this policy outlines the internal and external awards for the department. That includes the Landowner of the Year Award, the Peer Recognition Award, the service awards that we just saw in the commission earlier today, and a lot of other policy or awards as well. So it goes through all those different awards. So the main change with this that we made with this policy was the prior policy had separate sections. Each award had a separate section for media coverage, award type, and award presentation. And so we to streamline the award, the policy, we actually took those sections and brought them up to the front, the first page of the policy. And basically, for media coverage, a lot of the media coverage examples in the policy were out of date. And so we updated that to basically just say the Comms Ed division will determine the appropriate media coverage for each award. That way we can have it on social media, TV, magazine, however we feel is appropriate for that. So we think that's a good change. So by removing those three sections and putting them at the front of the policy, that reduced the number of pages in the policy from 17 pages down to 12, which definitely streamlines that a little bit. And we think that's a good change. And it keeps all the main material of the policy together. We also cleaned up the language a little bit throughout. The other, I guess, major change would be we modified the Landowner of the Year Award to recognize a minimum of 3 landowners. The prior policy version of the policy had 4 landowners minimum. We think 3 is a good number to at least have a minimum for landowners to recognize. And this year we're recognizing a lot more than that. And I think most years we will, but just have a minimum of 3. We also had changed the policy to include 1 landowner, to recognize 1 landowner that provides excellent public access. The reason for that change was that we used to have a access recognition program that met every year and had a banquet to recognize landowners for access. That's no longer happening. And so we decided to move that just straight over to Landowner of the Year. It's a good move to recognize landowners for access as well. We also updated the procedure for nomination for Landowner of the Year as well. And then last on here, we have the Landowner of the Year will be presented at a commission meeting or other appropriate venue. In prior years, we had a banquet to recognize landowners for Landowner of the Year. And this year, we're going to try that at a commission meeting. The reason behind that is to have a little bit more coverage by the public to see the landowners and recognize their contributions to wildlife. These commission meetings are shown on YouTube and so on, so I think it'll get a little bit more exposure through that change. So that's the main changes in the future. We can have it as a banquet or we can have it as a commission meeting award as well. So whichever one works best. And that's the main changes to the policy. So at this time, the department recommends the commission vote to approve revisions to policy 3E, Awards and Recognition Program, as presented. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Mr. President, I would make a motion to approve the revisions of policy 3E, Awards and Recognition Program, as presented.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? If there being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. President Jolovich, members of the commission, Director Bruce, Martin Hicks, Deputy Chief of the Wildlife Division. Every year we come to you and give you an update of how winter conditions had been over the past few months. And so I'm going to try to do my best to paint a picture of what that looks like, or what lack of winter we had this last several months. So yeah, 25, 26 winter severity was obviously well below what we typically see. Is the complete opposite of what we saw in 22, 23. But I think it's important to point out, severe winters can have drastic negative effects on wildlife populations. So can drought conditions. And so this presentation is going to focus more on what we anticipate, what we expect to see, how populations are impacted because of the lack of winter, and possibly what could happen if these current climate changes continue. And as you guys go through seasons tomorrow, I think it's important to remember that climate has a significant impact on our populations, more so than what we do through harvest. So these next several slides are maps indicating what weather patterns, what temperatures are, what lack of snowpack was, and so I drew on folks that are specialized in this, our climate folks from NOAA and NRCS, and I use their maps to tell the story. So this first map is our mean daily temperature. Obviously, the redder you are, the warmer it was compared to the long-term average. And so on average, for the last 90 days, and that's the 90 days from December through March, we are anywhere from 5 to 10 degrees warmer. And again, that's not something I need to tell you folks, but it's something to keep in mind. In addition to that, we had a lot of winds. We have a lot of winds every year in southeast Wyoming, right? But it seemed more excessive across the state. And so you have warm temperatures coupled with winds, and you're going to have a higher evaporation loss. So our soils lost a lot of that water moisture that are crucial for growing our native vegetation. So it wasn't a good situation there either.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. And I'm sorry to interrupt you in the middle, but if I save this question to the end, you're going to have to go all the way back to that slide. And so with your permission, Mr. President, help me with this. What is this telling me? This is measuring evaporation rates of water from soil, right?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, you are correct.
Okay, compared what?
Compared to a 30-year average.
I'm sorry?
Compared to a 30-year average.
30-year average. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Mr. President, if I may, a little clarification on that, Commissioner Masterson, is the wind blew a lot this year.
The left side of the table appreciates that. Thank you.
Okay. These next couple of slides talk about snowpack. And I'll go into more details in each one of these maps, but the map on your left is from 2025. The map on your right is from 2026. So basically, the greener the color, the more closer it was to average snow depth. And this is how they measure this is snow water equivalent. So if you were to take your snowpack, melt it, how deep would that water be standing? And you can measure that. Is there a lot of water? Is there less water? And that's something you can track over the years to see what your snowpack levels are. So again, a lot of green in 2025, a lot of red in 2026, and I'll go into that more detail. So in 2025, there's 19 different basins in the state of Wyoming. And in last year, 73% of those basins were at or above what we consider average. In 2026, and then only 10% were at or above 75%. So we had an average winter, basically what we had last year. If we go to 2026, only 10% of those basins were at or above 100%, and 74% of the basins were at or below that 75% of what is average. So we do not have a lot of snowpack. And if you look at, I took a 30-day snapshot, March 1 through May 31st, to look and see what climatologists are predicting. And the brown indicates that drought will persist. The majority of the state of Wyoming is covered in brown. And so through May 31st, climatologists predict that this drought will continue. So not a rosy picture. When you have drought, you have a lot of other things that accompany drought. One of those things is fires, wildfires. And since the beginning of the year, we have had over 160 fires in the state of Wyoming, and this was up through March of 2026, burning almost 12,000 acres. We've had several fires in April, so this number is actually higher. The pink polygons just highlight where those darker colored small polygons, those are actual fires. Just trying to highlight, focus you where those are at. And it's throughout the whole state. Because of these fires, at the end of March, 10 counties in the state of Wyoming were under fire restrictions. And since March, 2 more counties, Converse and Natrona County, also joined in those fire bans. So what I'd like to do now is a picture paints a better, it's better than 1,000 words, right? So we reached out to every region, and most of the regions had the same kind of photos of winter range, high elevation, what we would expect to see where animals would be going in the summer for summer ranges. And I can't thank them enough for providing these pictures, so they're going to tell a pretty good story of what we're seeing. So to start in the Cody region, start at that top left and go clockwise. First picture is the fire on the Yellowtail. That was the cane fire, burned over 2,000 acres. Typically this time of year, we like to do prescribed fires. This was not a prescribed fire. This is an actual wildfire. We are not doing prescribed fires right now because of drought conditions. The next picture to the right of that is Wapiti Ridge. What we would anticipate here is to see total white. And all these pictures are taken sometime in February, kind of the peak of our winter months. And we want to see a lot of snow up in Wapiti Ridge, and you're just not seeing that. If you keep going clockwise, you go down to what's called Sheep Mountain. Again, just the lack of snow is concerning to managers. And then shift over to the left there, and that's Sweetwater Creek. Again, these are high elevations where we want ungulates to go migrating in the winter. We want a lot of snow in there in the winter to help produce vegetation in the summer. We're going to be missing that. Shifting to the Green River region, these are all winter range photos. Starting at the top left is Nugget Canyon. Again, our winter range, you don't expect it to be completely open. You want some snow down on your winter range. You don't want it covering your sagebrush, but you expect snow. That's just how Wyoming is. In all 4 of these locations within the region, there was no snow in February, so that is concerning. So the picture with the deer is over by Superior. The one just down from that is the northern end of the Crawfords, and then scooting over to the left, that's Boulder Ridge. Shift to the Jackson region. These are all winter range pictures. Typically, you shouldn't see any of that vegetation in Jackson in February, but you are. So the top left is the Gros Ventre. Over to the right of that is the Grays River. The picture down below that is a hoop transect, and what's unique about this, you throw a hoop out there that time of year, you shouldn't see any vegetation at all. You're seeing too much vegetation. And there's a scoot over to the left from that is Togety Pass. Again, we'd anticipate not to see any bare ground at that location. Shifting to the Lander region, again, these are all winter range conditions, but there should be snow there. Typically there's snow. On an average year, you should see snow, but the top left, that's just outside of Lander during a flight survey. Red Canyon is next to that. Down below that, where the sheep are, is Torrey Valley. And then to the left of that is the Spence Moriarty unit. Again, it's just very, very open winter. If we go to the Laramie region, they provided a snapshot of in the background, that Sheep Mountain. And they took a picture, this Game Warden Ryan Snell took a picture of this location in 2022, 23, when we had that severe winter. It's hard to tell. It's the exact same area, but there's almost 12 to 14 inches more snow in 2022, 23 than there was this last year. It's high elevation. You expect to see a lot of snow, and you just didn't see it this year. Pinedale, what we saw in Pinedale, I appreciate these pictures they sent me. This is the two locations. One was last year. Top on the left side is last year's winter. You've got Prospect Mountains, and then you look at 2026, same year, zero. So the bottom left is Iris March. Again, same exact location this year, no snow. So again, what does this mean? How does this impact wildlife? So when we have drought conditions, unlike snow, where it just doesn't, it prevents animals from getting to feed and kills them that way. Drought conditions, that this doesn't produce the feed they need, the nutrients they need to put into good body condition to go into the following winter. And so we're going to see a decrease in production from big games all the way down to migratory upland game birds. We anticipate we're going to see an increase in disease outbreaks. When you have drought conditions, wildlife are going to concentrate in areas that are green and have water. You concentrate animals in high numbers, you anticipate some type of a disease situation, and I'll talk a little bit later on that in the following slide. We anticipate we're going to see an increase in wildlife conflicts. Again, wildlife need to live, right? They're going to go where the food is. And in the summer, they're going to go to places that still have irrigation water, and that's typically private lands that are trying to grow some type of crop. And so we anticipate our field folks will be dealing with a lot of damage situations with private landowners. We also, when we have drought conditions and berries aren't produced, we see an uptick in conflicts with large carnivores, particularly black bears. That means a lot of time our field folks are going to spend dealing with those types of conflicts. Black bears, any bears, you have lack of berries, you're going to spend an inordinate amount of time and hours dealing with those things. So we just anticipate that'll happen. We also know going into that winter, conditions like this, if they remain the same, those wildlife species are going to be in poor body condition. And if we have even an average winter, we could expect to see a higher winter mortality. To continue on, if you're not able to grow groceries, you're going to decrease the carrying capacity. And so we expect to see the number of animals that the landscape can support, that should decrease. I already mentioned this, we anticipate more wildfire activity. And then we also anticipate an impact to the quantity and quality of our native shrubs, our grass species. Again, that's going to impact your carrying capacity. So one little shining note, I know I'm very depressing, I apologize, but one little shining star is, this isn't our first year of drought, right? We've been through drought many, many years, and our elected officials understand that, and I can't appreciate and thank them enough for having some foresight to put some funding, set aside some funding to deal with these types of situations. The first one is there's over $36 million in the biennial budget for cheatgrass or invasive annual grass. So any type of fire activity, we need to come in right after that fire and deal with controlling cheatgrass. This pool of funds will help us do that. There's also two new bills that passed this year, House Bill 36, which is the Forestry Division wildlife fire models. Basically what that is state forestry will now be able to hire 4 full-time employees and 20 AWAC or temporary employees to help with fight fire. We've recognized in the past when you have significant fires and you don't have the manpower to control those, fires get bigger. And so our legislative was forward thinking in putting this funding aside and having some folks out there to help. The other bill that passed was House Bill 78. That's the Forest Health Grant Program. And basically what this is there's $3.5 million out there for folks to do good things for forests that are at risk for fire, wildlife habitat work. That just opened up. It's opened April 15th through May 14th for applications, and our folks are already starting to apply for those funds. Then the final thing I'll touch on is disease. We know based on previous years when we have drought conditions, we're going to have disease outbreak, particularly epizootic hemorrhagic disease or blue tongue. They're two viral diseases that impact mainly deer, mainly white-tailed deer and pronghorn. Typically, we see an outbreak every 10 years. This cycle is starting to tighten up a little bit. We're starting to see this almost every 5 to 6 years. Just to give you an indication that the map on the left with the pink polygons, the heat map is from the summer of 23 when we had good moisture. We had a lot of moisture. We still had some EHD outbreaks, mainly along river corridors where you anticipate to see those. But last year, that's the map on your right, we had a lot of EHD outbreaks throughout the whole state. Will that continue again this year? Time will tell. But if you based it on past experiences where you have drought conditions, you don't get a hard freeze in the fall, you're going to have these midges that carry that vector, and you're going to have high mortality rates, particularly on white-tailed deer and possibly pronghorn. So we'll continue to monitor that. Our wildlife health lab does a tremendous job doing the diagnostics on anything we send in and letting us know where these things are happening, so we can document it and then prepare for the following season recommendations if we have high die-offs. The other disease that we need to talk about is chronic wasting disease. Again, when you're concentrating high numbers of ungulates into an area, you have a higher risk of transmitting that prion. And so if conditions remain the same as they are, we anticipate to see an uptick in CWD prevalence in herds throughout the state. So with that, we'll continue to monitor. Things could change. It could start raining. We hope it does, but if it doesn't, we will monitor that. Every fall, we work with the communications team to put out a fall forecast. And in that forecast, it's a hunting forecast. We talk about what the conditions are out there, what wildlife species will be going, what the condition they'll be going into the winter will be, and just keeping hunters, constituents apprised of the situation. We'll also be doing started our pronghorn surveys in August. We'll have a pretty good idea what fawn survival will be like. We'll be collecting sage grouse wings in September. That'll give us a really good indication on what brood success was like for most of our game birds just by looking at sage grouse. So we'll continue to monitor it. We'll use that information as we go into season setting in 2027. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Mr. President, Martin, thank you for that. So we know 25, we had an average winter and we assume that the deer went in, just knowing what that fat content would be going into winter, they shouldn't have had to use as much of that. How does that impact those animals coming out? Can they use that in the summer, or do they just get their summer body no matter what?
Yeah, President Jolovich, Commissioner Bell, certainly going into fawning period in much better condition, but there is a high energy demand on those females to produce milk and even to carry that fawn to term. If they aren't getting their nutrient needs even now until they give birth in end of May, first part of June, the fawn's going to be smaller, weaker, less chance of survival. So yeah, they're going into they should be in great shape right now because they had such a mild winter, but they need to pack on the pounds spring and summer as well.
Mr. President, thank you for your uplifting presentation. No, I appreciate the work that you put into it, and I like getting the updates. I don't like getting the updates, but you know what I mean. You mentioned the cane fire was a natural origin. Did I hear you right?
Yeah, President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, it was a wildfire. It was not a man-made. We did not set fire on there on purpose. I can't remember how it was started, but it was a man-made.
It's
Or
kind
it was a wildfire.
Yeah, it just strikes me as kind of odd this time of year to have a natural caused fire, but that's neither here nor there. The Forest Health Grant Program, is that money that the department applies for, or are we administering that money? You mentioned that program towards the end of your presentation.
Yeah, President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, the state forestry is administering that.
Okay.
Those funds will be available to federal and state agencies to apply for and other organizations.
Okay, and the department will apply for some of that?
We've already had two terrestrial habitat pilots that are, and then we'll have a better idea closer to the deadline. Yes.
Okay. All right. Mr. President, I would move for 12 inches of deep, wet snow to fall in Wyoming in the next 48 hours.
Second. Mr. President, so because I can't say no and I'm on the Campbell County Fire Board also, we have a lot of active coal seams that reach the surface and cause us some problems every year. And we're actively continuing to watch those already. This normally not this time of year we have to watch those, but we have to watch those now. So it's not great news out there, but hopefully we can get a bunch of rain.
Mr. President, if I may, to maybe go along with Commissioner Masterson's motion, is there a policy within the department on these drought years to maybe wash vehicles more often, more frequently to make it rain or snow? I'm doing my part. I washed my pickup this morning on the way here, so thank you, Martin.
It's hot. It is hot.
Hello, President Jolovich, Commissioners, Director Bruce, Meredith Wood, CFO. Final presentation of today. And this is to provide an overview of non-resident preference points and reduced price licenses as requested by the commission in the last commission meeting. Oh, this is my job. So today, as I mentioned, we'll talk about non-resident preference points and reduced price license fees. We're going to start with non-resident preference points. I'll cover the history, current revenue that is generated from the sale of those, and provide a few fee adjustment scenarios for your information and consideration. So I'll apologize ahead of time. None of these slides have pretty pictures, and they are very, very busy, but we thought it was important to show some of these details in the history of these different license products. So no pictures, but this slide represents all of the non-resident preference points that are available via statute that the commission has authorization to adjust the fees up to a maximum amount. The gray boxes indicate the year that those points were established. The green boxes indicate the years where the fees for those products went up. So in 1996, moose and sheep points were created. In 2006, antelope, deer, and elk non-resident points were created, and the price for moose and sheep increased. In 2018, the legislature implemented an expansion for the range that the commission can set those prices up to. And in that same year, moose and sheep went to the maximum amount that was authorized. So for antelope, deer, and elk, there was an increase in those years for the price of those products, but the maximum is $75. So there is possible maximum increase amounts as follows. So current revenue, this is as of 2025 calendar year preference point sales. Total points sold was just under 460,000 points for a total of $21.27 million from non-resident point sales. So moving into a couple of the fee scenarios, this scenario represents taking 100% of the points to the max fee allowable under statute. Moose and sheep are already there, so you notice in the third column, the dollar amount change is 0 for those two. For the other three, it takes them to the max price. So their max change in price is identified in that column. That would estimate an additional revenue of $14.6 million annually. If, of course, the number of sales stays consistent or goes up. Scenario 2, this is applying a 35% increase to those 3 points. Moose and sheep doesn't change. And then the resulting impact of a 35% increase, which for antelope is 11, deer is 14, and elk is $18 per point. And that would generate approximately $6.4 million annually. Scenario 3 is essentially an arbitrary dollar change per those 3 products to get to a new price of, for example, antelope from 31 to 40, that would be a $9 increase. Deer 41 to 55, $14 increase. Elk 52 to 75, which would be a $23 increase, and that's about 6.9 million additional anticipated revenue annually. This scenario 4 is a consistent dollar change across the board for those 3. I don't probably need to walk through the details on the worksheet, but that would generate approximately 6.6 million per year. Summary of the scenarios presented, moving all points to max allowable under statute, which would mean antelope, deer, and elk going to $75 a piece. That would generate approximately $14.6 million additional in preference point revenue. 35% increase, estimated 6.4. The various scenario there, 6.9-ish, and a flat amount across the board for each, 6.7. Of course, they can be adjusted many other different ways, but these are the ones that were shown. That's all I have for preference points. We can answer questions about those, or I can continue with reduced price licenses, whatever is your preference, President Jolovich.
Mr. President, Meredith, thank you for this. I don't know if you're the best person to answer this or maybe somebody else, but as we went through this progression of price increases, the max for all of deer, elk, and antelope are all the same, but antelope and deer and elk have always been different. Do you know what, any kind of reason behind that other than one of those animals is smaller than the other ones?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Bell, you're right, I'm not the right person. I don't know. I'm not sure
I was just curious.
what that history is.
I don't know it. I didn't know if anybody had any idea. I mean, I'm just curious why maybe deer and antelope weren't the same and elk higher. I was just wondering if anybody remembers any kind. I didn't go back and look through minutes from decades ago or anything, but okay. Thanks.
Mr. President, I do, since we're on this topic of non-resident preference points. So looking at the revenue on just non-resident preference points, that's approximately a third of the revenue, right?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Haskell, yes, preference points in total make up just over 20% of our total revenue at this point.
Okay.
for the department. Resident point revenue is obviously significantly less.
Sure. So, these proposals, and thank you for putting those together. That's potentially a pretty large increase of revenue to help make up some shortfalls and doing things where we can without having to reach out to the legislature. A question that I asked to Deputy Director Wiltanger, I think it was yesterday or day before, after reviewing this stuff, and you gave me the answers in private, but for the rest of the commission, I was wondering, with the implementation of the 90-10 license allocations on the Big Five, the legislature did. I was wondering if there was a change in preference points, but how many non-residents had maybe opted out, if that changed revenue any. But then also you gave me some other figures that I think were pretty relevant that maybe you'd like to share with the rest of the commission.
Absolutely. President Jolovich, Commissioner Haskell, after 90-10, so I did a 3-year average pre the change and post the change, and consistently we've seen across the board for those 4 species, a 20% reduction in total applications from non-residents. That equates to about 1,350 applications. So in total dollars from lost revenue, and as far as application fees, it's fairly minimal. They did offset special license prices for non-residents at that same time to basically recoup what we potentially lose from the sale of the actual license. So as far as that revenue, it didn't really change. Preference points are an interesting thing, and when I've looked over the history of points, and there has never once been a year where the revenue has gone down, which means sales continue to stay consistent and increase. Whether it's by the same individuals, I can't necessarily say, but yeah.
Thank you for bringing up that point, and I know I put you kind of on the spot last minute too, but that's a pretty big reduction in just applicants, and like you said, the application fee is very minimal, and so there didn't see much there. But if we're going to continue to see a decrease in applicants, eventually that's going to have a big ripple effect on revenue. That kind of scares me. But thank you for that, Meredith.
So, Mr. President, so a little bit more history on that, Meredith. Thank you for that. When 90-10 happened for the Big Five, that was supposed to be coupled with a change, and this was something that came out of the task force, and so this is going to tie up maybe a couple things in that, when we looked at this and as a task force and talked through this a lot, this really was supposed to be coupled and was coupled with legislature on a weighted bonus point, changing it to a weighted bonus point. So, well, as we know, legislature does what legislature wants to do or does, and they pass 90-10 because it's very popular, and then because they didn't understand it fully as a legislative body, they didn't pass the weighted bonus point. And what happened is actually in the Big Five, there's not really an opportunity in very many areas to even draw on that random tag. And so it made sense that people dropped out. It really did. And I hate to say that because as a department, we knew it. As a task force, we knew it. That's why we tried to make that case to legislature. And as we know, legislature, there's only about 10% of the legislature that understands these kind of issues and takes the time to understand them. So it still sits there with very few people having a chance at the random draw every year. And so actually we're lucky that this many people send in. And so now you go back to the other things where we have deer, elk, and antelope that continue. I mean, we have the point system does work. The preference point system does work. It could be better. But we continually have seen across the West the increase not only in license fees, but preference point fees. That does not, as long as there's a chance to draw, an opportunity to hunt, They will continue to send in, and that demand is going to continue to go up and up and up. We have seen that. We've never seen it decrease. So I'm just going to leave that there.
Okay.
One more question, Mr. President, Meredith.
Yes.
This is non-resident preference points. Resident preference points are already maxed out, correct? We can't do anything about that.
They are. They're
Okay.
$7 if purchased separate. They're given if unsuccessful with an application.
Okay.
And that's in statute. Okay, so next topic, reduced price licenses, a little bit of the history. Which licenses I've included in the scenarios and which ones I've excluded from the scenarios, and then a couple of fee adjustment scenarios for your consideration. So the ones that are included in this discussion, again, it's the same chart. Gray indicates when the product was created. Green indicates when the commission chose to increase the price on that product. Red indicates when the commission chose to decrease the price on that product. And what's included in the scenarios are essentially the full price, reduced price products. So adult licenses, basically. The ones that we did not include Pioneer Heritage, and Youth for all of the species, antelope, deer, elk, and ewe lamb. You could, but we didn't for the scenarios. So current revenue from the ones included in the scenarios are based on 5-year average sales, $3.3 million total. The majority of which is like our full price licenses in non-resident elk. Scenario 1, this again applies a 35% increase. The amount of that increase by license is indicated in that third column over. So resident antelope doe fawn would be an increase of $8, bringing the new price to $30 from $22. Bottom line across the board for the ones included in the scenarios, it would be roughly a $1.2 million annual increase if opportunity and sales stay consistent. Scenario 2, this is a flat dollar amount across the board for every single license. You can multiply it. However, the example here shows $5, which would be a $220,000 increase per year. So 2 scenarios. Obviously, these can be modified several different ways, but for your consideration or discussion, 35% would be a 1.1, $5 across the board for those sales would be $215,000, $220,000. Just for some informational purposes, this is a history of major license fee increases. So we have data back to 1977. The first change since then came in 1980. I think one thing that's a little bit interesting, if you look at the spreadsheet in its ginormous format, in 1980, we had 75 total products. And today we have 175 total products. So I try to depict a little bit where those changes occurred, but in 1980, it was across the board, resident, non-resident. In 92, there was a increase across the board on 64 of the 99 products. And that is also when the reduced price licenses were created and set under commission authority for establishing the price. 1997, a fee increase that included full price and reduced price, resident and non-resident. So essentially half of all license or product types received an increase. 8 new products were created, and that is the year the conservation stamp was established. 2004, again, across the board, heritage license products were established, and we went to 112 total products. 2005, again, across the board increase on half roughly of the products. And then 2008, that was the last fee increase across the board, and that was on resident and non-resident, all resident and non-resident licenses, with the exception of youth, I believe. 2018, there was an increase. That was to purposefully offset the loss of the general funds that we were receiving for those 5 programs. So the net result in that increase was about $6 million per year. And then in 2024, we just talked about that transition from 80-20 or 75-25 to the 90-10. There was an increase on non-resident specials. And just for FYI, the cumulative inflation since that across the board increase in 2008 through the end of 2025, 68.3%. And then since COVID or 2020, 35.7%. So we do not have a proposal or a recommendation to the commission. I'd be happy to stand for questions. But I will let you know, these fees do not necessarily need to go to public comment. They are in commission rule. So I'll stand for questions.
Mr. President, I have, and I don't want to beat the dead horse or whatever, but really, I think the department and the commission, we really should, I mean, when's the last resident increase? 2004? 2008, like you said. Time's a coming, and I don't know. I think we can solve a lot of these problems because what I see, we're nitpicking here, we're $1 here, and we're moving the non-resident there. We're doing that, and I don't see, and I always usually to talk about a bag of jerky. You go in to buy a bag of jerky in a Red Bull, it's $10 and $12, and then you talk about raising a resident deer license $10, and the world drops out from underneath you. And I think it's fair to say that the citizens, I mean, nobody wants to bring it to the legislature because it's like, oh my God, the legislature won't do it. But I think they'll be open to it a little bit to get the ball rolling because eventually it's got to be done. And I think we should start moving towards that direction to do it. I mean, it's like the cap, we had to move that towards the landowner license. We're moving that towards, we're moving some to our, downfall, of course. But I mean, I can't agree with anybody that says, oh, no way, I don't want to increase these licenses. Because it's like you said, inflation's 64% since then or whatever it was. It's time for the citizens to kick up a little bit, and I'm sorry, and that's why I'll be off the commission in a year, so you guys can address that. But I don't want to.
Well, Mr. President, I think we had a lot of conversation in the task force about business and I think we hear this actually a lot from legislators right now that we should treat government like a business. Well, we actually have, and the state of Wyoming has something that everybody wants. And the demand is very much gone up and up and up and up, and that's deer, elk, and antelope. We can continue to take things to them, but I don't think they're going to say, well, have you done everything that you can do as a commission to raise the money that you need without the legislature doing that? And I would say you've just given us the answer is no, we haven't done everything. But we also have seen that even when those points go up, and it's not just Wyoming, anywhere across the West, if you have something that they want and that will continue to go up, that demand will continue to either stay level or continue to go up, and they'll pay that fee for those licenses. So I want to see this us take advantage of this now and have that conversation, continue to have that conversation with the legislature.
And that would, I'd respectfully disagree. I mean, I think that we have these tools now and we're tweaking a little bit higher, we want higher. I'm just at the point where, enough's enough. I mean, when do we finally say we have to have that done to do this business? I mean, the non-residents, the lower prices. Oh, I mean, come on. I mean, we could always do that. I mean, that's an easy pickings for us, but was that the right pickings? No. I truly believe that it's the easy way out for us. We'll always have that mechanism, but the citizens and our hunters, heck, an increase in license for deer, elk, antelope, all that, I mean, that's not even 2 gallons of gas now. I mean, and that would immensely help this department so much. I mean, we would pay for the fish hatchery in a year. We can do all of this. We can make it better for everybody in Wyoming and make it more pleasurable hunting. And they're not out anything, really. I mean, 2008, come on. But like I say, I'll be gone a year, so you guys have fun.
Mr. President, from being on the budget subcommittee and having a little bit of insight into the budget, I am very confident that the department does an excellent job of administering sportsmen's dollars that make up, 88% of our budget comes directly from either license fees or federal excise taxes. I might not have the numbers exactly right, but
Close
I'm
enough.
close. And I think anybody who would look at the budget of the department would say that they are responsible and transparent stewards of that money. But we have a lot of people who travel to Wyoming and come through Wyoming who come here to see wildlife. They don't come here to hunt it or fish it. They come here to experience it and see it. And, no one's figured out a way yet. There's been some, but, no one's figured out a way to charge someone for taking a picture of a antelope by the side of the road or a deer. And so we can't, I hate to use a phrase, but we can't monetize that. And the preservation of Wyoming's wildlife costs money. There's just no two ways about it. Preservation of habitat, rehabilitating habitat, fighting the diseases, doing the research, all of these things cost money. It's getting more and more expensive. And because of the way we're set up, this is how I see it, the way we're set up, if you talk about running like a business, the person who runs our business has said, you can't charge more than this amount of money for your product, even though your product might cost you far more than that. So we are capped by how much we can charge for the privilege of coming and hunting our wildlife. We're unable to capture the economic value of wildlife viewing and watching, which the only stats I've ever seen, the only peer-reviewed stats I've ever seen show that it dwarfs the amount produced by hunting and fishing. We, as a commission, have to figure out a way to pay for these things. But it's more than paying for it. It's a way of preserving the way of life that we love. And you drive here, sorry for those of you who've heard me say this, but I drive here from Casper and there's all these antelope that I haven't seen this many antelope here in 10 years. And it's great. And there's big wide open spaces. And yeah, there's oil and gas. And I love development. Development is fine. Just do it thoughtfully. And we cooperate and we help and we facilitate these things so we can keep our way of life, so we can keep our animals, so we can keep our minerals, so we can keep driving around and driving by and going, oh my God, that was like a 4-point mule deer buck standing by the side of the road. And what a miraculous thing we have. But it costs money. And the only way we can fund ourselves is this mechanism. These are the tools that we have available right now. I remember talking about the budget with Deputy Director Wiltanger and Meredith, and it was like, hey, diesel is like $3 a gallon. We're going to be okay. Not anymore. So how much does that add to us? How many vehicle replacements have we put off because we have to save the funds and we have to parse money out? We are incredibly good stewards, but we need more income to do this right and to do it correctly. So I'm all for all of the above. Preference points, the licenses, as well as legislative appeal. I'm a strong adherent to government closest to the people is the most responsive and the best. And I think we would, as a commission, would do just fine setting the prices for all licenses. But that is for a decision. That's a decision for people who get a lot more votes than we get. And that's for them to decide. But given the tools we have now, I'm all in favor of it. I'm all in.
And Mr. President, I'd agree. We have Tourism for Tomorrow. I mean, the Wildlife Fund has come up with one of the sister organizations for trying to benefit, to try to capture some of that money. And I'd encourage us to work with them. They got a lot of really good ideas, and work with them as a department as much as we can to, because they've kind of tried to address this situation, but it's like you say, it's a very difficult one to capture that money. We're getting the people here. They want to see wildlife, but I think that was one of the little tools that we do have that we could maybe rely on a little bit, because they're willing to help us. Thanks.
Mr. President, so I'd make a motion to raise deer, elk, and antelope preference points to the max levels allowed by the legislature. They've given us one tool to work with. That's our tool. And if I can get a second, I'll give you my other explanation.
Mr. President, I would second that, noting that the current price was set in 2018 at various amounts, and inflation since then is roughly 36%. I think it's appropriate. I think it's fair. And it's the cost of doing business.
Mr. President, I'll tag in and say, if you look at that, John, what's the page number on that one? Yeah.
It's 3.
Because it's really 2006 since those preference points have gone up for those 3 species. In 2006, $30 for antelope, 40 for deer, 50 for elk, and they're sitting at 52, 41, and 31 right now. So it's really 2006. We're talking about, as Commissioner Roberts said, about a 65% increase since that time period, and just in cost of living. And so the reason why I think we should take it all the way to that max is, one, to say to the legislature, we do need the flexibility on the other licenses. Number 2, I think by not adjusting all the license fees right now, but this is just the preference point fees, you're not taking away opportunity from kids or people that hunt for meat, because in my part of the state, you can shoot as many cow elk as you can get licenses for and fit in the back of your pickup, basically, if you can get access to get to them. So there are opportunities for cow elk and doe deer, or tons of opportunities for whitetail deer. There's lots of opportunity for doe antelope, as we're going to see tomorrow. And so raising these non-resident preference point fees, I think, is saying we recognize the work that our wardens that have put in 35 years with us, the sacrifices they've made. We're going to match those salaries that the state gave, and we have to do that through our own internal funding. So we have to be prepared. I personally don't believe the raises that we're going to give to those wardens and those biologists are going to cover the cost of living increases that they've seen. I mean, that you can't buy a pizza for what we're giving those folks on a weekly basis with these salary increases. We got to be prepared to do more for them. And I think this would help us do that. The other thing is, I think it's important to all of us to have those folks in the field. And when diesel prices jump from $3 to $5, you better be ready to cover that. These guys still need to put these folks need to still be able to put those miles on those vehicles and get out there in the field. And then, you know, as Martin Hicks described, we've got these wild swings in weather that we've been dealing with, and we need the ability to monitor those populations and react to that. So I think rather than just jump around or do it incrementally, let's go to the top right now. That's my 2 cents.
Mr. President, I think we're in discussion in this. Is that what we're doing? Okay. Not only do I support that, but I support going to legislature with Commissioner Roberts and trying to get them to increase resident license fees, and we'll talk through that with them. And might be a whole new group. It'll be some new and some of the same, and then continuing to have those conversations about what we call non-consumptive users. And I don't know that that's always true. I think there's some consumptive things that they do, hike our trails and be out in our wilderness during lambing and calving and fawning seasons, and it has an impact. There's just more and more people. Some people load calf buffalo up in their vehicles and just take them. And so, I mean, they're not non-consumptive. And so there's an impact there that is seen. And not only that, we have other legislative items that we need to move forward that will have an impact. And that is giving our non-residents in the Big Five an opportunity, a real fair opportunity to draw with one preference point so that they continue to have a reason to continue to send in. And so those are important things that are really a fairness thing that we need to go to the legislative body and continue to ask. And I'm ready to do that, but I'm also ready to support this because I think it makes sense.
Mr. President, Commissioner Mai, I really appreciate your explanation of that, and it makes really good sense to me. I was crunching the numbers here, and that even at 35% on the preference points, and then the non-resident, or excuse me, the reduced price, that's only trending about 50% of inflation since 2008, right? So it's just kind of really a drop in the bucket, and trying our best to play catch up without hitting people too hard in the pocketbook. But I really like Commissioner Mai's explanation and his motion to only look at and address preference points, to increase those to the max. I think that's a real quick, easy fix. And for the sake of not affecting other people right away, leaving the reduced price licenses alone. But I think it's a good solution. Prior to the motion, I was thinking that maybe would it be worthwhile to maybe poll or survey what people would think. I know I have conversations in my line of business as an outfitter. I have conversations with non-resident applicants and also booking agencies and consultants. And we are the envy of a lot of Western states for the opportunities that we provide. A lot of people are still looking at Wyoming because of increased opportunity of drawing licenses and being able to actually go and hunt. I don't think we're close yet to scaring them off at the price points we're at, but also I would like to see what some people think. But I'm in favor of this motion and support it so long as we can do it, and certainly be happy to vote on it.
Mr. President, I guess I would ask the bringer of the motion that what that effective date would, and I would think it would be January 1 of 27. Would that be okay?
Mr. President, I did neglect to mention the January 1st start date so that we don't impact anybody that's applying now or anybody that has already applied.
That'd be 27.
January 1 of 2027.
Okay, so the motion and the second is to up the non-resident preference points on antelope, deer, and elk to the max of $75, January 21, or January 1, 2027. Okay, we've had discussion. Is there any more discussion?
Mr. President, I do have one question on that, and I guess I'm seeking clarification here on this, but currently, non-residents cannot apply for or purchase a preference point until early July, correct?
Mr. President, Commissioner Haskell, yes, that's correct. However, non-resident applications in January have the option to elect to purchase a point if unsuccessful. So they may have made those elections with the understanding of what the price of that is.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So that makes sense on January 1, 2027. I support that.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's not very often, but I see the wisdom in this and I don't, I would go along with this motion after being convinced by the other fellow commissioners. I hate to admit that, but I have to admit that for my own sanity kind of stuff, so.
Okay, so we've had a motion and a second. We've had a bunch of discussion. Everybody understands where we're at? All in favor? Do we have any public comment?
Tony?
That's the only one.
Okay, it sounds like we're good to go. Once again, we've had a motion and a second. We've had discussion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None being opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. We're ready for public comment. I have one public comment from Cliff LeBlanc. Did I say that correctly?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Cliff LeBlanc. I represent a grassroots group of about 50 people based in Powell called Voices for Wyoming Wildlife. I want to speak today about fair chase and the role of technology in modern hunting. My position needs to be clear. I am not arguing against technology. Hunters have always adapted to better tools. The question is not whether technology belongs in hunting, but where we draw the line between assistance and the replacement of skill. Right now, Wyoming does not have clearly defined statutory framework for fair chase within Title 23. At the same time, we're seeing rapid advancement in technology that directly impacts how animals are located and how shots are taken. And importantly, other states have already begun to respond. In Idaho, Utah, and Colorado, there are now specific restrictions on categories of electronic hunting technology, including advanced optics, electronic rifle systems, trail cameras, and real-time data transmission tools. Tomorrow morning, I could purchase commercially available optics like the Burris Eliminator 4 or advanced systems such as the Revic PMR 428 Smart Scope. These mechanisms can calculate and display a firing solution to me at real time. In some configurations, that information is integrated directly into a scope's crosshairs. When the Revic system calculates wind, distance, angle, and ballistic drop, then presents a firing solution directly to the hunter, the nature of this decision-making process changes. The question becomes, is the hunter still solving the shot, or is the system solving it for them? Technology can significantly reduce the consequences of poor judgment and limited experience, especially at extended ranges. And that's not a future concern, it's already here. We can expect to see advancements in this direction, including integrated ballistic systems, a heads-up display projecting a digital interface showing real-time ballistics and environmental data directly into the hunter's field of view through an optic. Ammunition technology is rapidly expanding as well. The military now has DARPA Exacto, an optical guidance system that adjusts a projectile's path after firing. That's right, smart bullets that change directions to hit a target. Right now, Exacto is not available to civilians, but the direction is clear. Hunters will be able to increase automation, increase precision, and thereby decrease uncertainty. These systems are designed to optimize outcomes, not to account for ethics, tradition, or wildlife. People benefit from hunting technology, wildlife does not. We're seeing similar trends in archery as well, but the same underlying question applies. When does a tool begin to replace the skill? Under current Wyoming law, there is no clear framework addressing that category of technology. So the question is not whether we regulate something like as advanced as Exacto, it's whether we define fair chase before technologies that move us closer to that level of automation become normalized. This creates two issues. First, a policy gap. Where technologies are addressed in neighboring states, they remain unaddressed here in Wyoming. Second, an enforcement challenge. Devices are becoming more integrated, less distinguishable, and harder to evaluate in the field. A good example is the Pulsar Merger LRF series thermal binoculars. These are widely considered the benchmark for thermal binoculars that look like traditional optics. They use a magnesium alloy housing and a familiar bridge design that fits comfortably in the hand. Do we want game wardens to begin inspecting every pair of binoculars? So my question to the commission is straightforward. When will Wyoming take a proactive approach, or will we wait until these tools are fully normalized before responding? Wyoming has long been a leader in wildlife conservation. It's fair to say we have lost our leadership in this area. What event or series of events will it take for Wyoming to preserve the ethics of the hunt in the modern era? I'd like to leave you with just an analogy. Right now, there's a viral video out of Warsaw, Poland, that is relevant to this discussion. Who has seen the short video of Edward the robot? If you've not seen the video, I encourage everyone to do a YouTube search for Edward the robot. You'll see a humanoid robot jogging across the parking lot, awkwardly chasing a group of wild boar. The animals have become a real nuisance in Warsaw. The robot didn't catch anything, it didn't solve any problems, and in truth, the whole thing was at least partially staged. But that's not the point. The point is that even a clumsy early stage machine was able to push wildlife, influence movement, and create space simply by existing. Now, fast forward that idea to a few years to maybe 2030. That's just 4 short years from now. Edward isn't chasing boars in a Polish parking lot anymore. He's standing at a Wyoming trailhead wearing a cowboy hat. There he is at 5 a.m., saddling up mules and loading panniers while his owner sleeps inside a warm fifth wheel. Once first light hit, Edward stays in the truck, but it's time for everyone else to look for that 1,200-yard shot at an elk. Nobody's arguing about whether Edward the robot is legal. Edward is just helping. Edward's just another piece of gear. Just efficiency. And that's how this all starts. Not with something clearly over the line, but with something useful, something convenient, something that just doesn't quite feel like a problem yet. Until one day, it's no longer a novelty, it's normal. Fair chase won't disappear all at once. It'll fade, one useful tool at a time. The question is whether we recognize that before fair chase is gone, or only after we've already passed that point where it would have been easy to address and draw the line. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you. Mr. President, if I may. Cliff, thank you for being here again. It's good to see you.
Thanks.
And thank you for your involvement, for being active. That's what makes things happen. I appreciate that.
I do appreciate being here. This is the third meeting that I've been at. The second one I spoke at in Cody. And really after that, our group of 50 people, we met with some legislators who are interested in creating a bill to address some of this stuff, but it's not going to get any better. In fact, it's growing by leaps and bounds. When I really would encourage everybody to look at that video because it is fully scary on what's coming next. And the longer these things go on, the harder it's going to be to change it. Like with the binoculars I was talking about, you really can't tell. It's really hard to tell the difference. And those binoculars work just as good at day as they do at night. And, we're talking about these fair chase issues. If we settle some of these things now, there's actually going to be more wildlife in the future. The 4-point buck that we were talking about seeing along the roadside could be there a lot longer. We just have to make sure that we're keeping track of what the wildlife actually need, and it's not people shooting at 1,200 yards and then can't find the elk for days and it just dies. So I really would encourage everybody to take an active look at this. I know that there's going to be more meetings in the future. It's been addressed at every meeting that I've been in. So it's really time to start looking and trying to find some solutions.
I have one question for you, I guess. And thank you for citing some of the pieces of equipment and gear. I'm very familiar with those. They are amazing technology. I'm wondering, as you've been tracking this stuff and the advancements in technology, I haven't. I've been advancing or, tracking the advancement in technology and wanting the latest and greatest as I'm a competitive long range shooter and a guide. I'm looking for ways to make my job not necessarily easier, but making sure that I'm making a good judgment call on animals for clients and stuff like that. But I'm wondering, with this advancement in technology, are we seeing an increase in harvests? Are the harvests increasing, or are they kind of staying the same or decreasing? I'd be interested to know. I would say that is probably the metric that should be used to maybe limit some of this technology. Is if we're increasing more and more every year in the amount of animals that are being harvested, then I think we need to really seriously take a look at that. I think until we get there, we probably don't need to start regulating more yet.
Well, that's a good question, but the actual measurement of that is going to be very, very difficult unless you're doing harvest surveys on the spot. People aren't really going to share a lot of that information, and some of it is already, as everyone knows, like the thermal binoculars. That's already illegal now. So nobody's going to admit, hey, I used thermal binoculars to spot this elk. Nobody's going to do that. But if you can see, I think one way to measure it possibly is just by the increased number of sales of these long-range rifles and these optics and where they're going. If you see a giant increase in some of these optics being sold and they're coming in Wyoming, then there's probably a good chance that they're using them to harvest the animals. It would be one way to check, but
yeah, I agree. As an outfitter, I see people coming to camp anymore. They're not bringing their old trusty, Model 70 30-06 with a 3-9 loophole on it. They're bringing a several $1,000 custom rifle because I think they're looking at these hunts as an investment, as we just talked about with preference points, right? There's people that are investing years and dollars to be able to come to Wyoming on a hunt. And I think as a result, they're looking to increase not only opportunity, but outcome because of the time invested. And they think that is a good investment in a quality rifle that is much more precise, ammunition that is much more precise, a scope that can give them a shooting solution. As an avid long-range shooter, I can count on one hand the amount of times that I've seen hunters in 27 years of guiding, seen hunters take shots in excess of 1,000 yards. And that hasn't been at big game animals. That's been in an opportunity on a coyote that we spotted. I've never seen a client of mine or heard of one taking a shot in excess of 1,000 yards. I think the term 1,200 yard shot on an elk is thrown around irresponsibly, in my opinion. The majority of my clientele are taking shots in the 400 to 600 yard range and doing it very precisely with good, consistent equipment.
sure.
But that's my perception.
I might agree with part of that. But there are people who do take the 1,200 shots. But I think for me, anything over 400 yards, we still have to look at what fair chase means. Is fair chase is 400 yards? Is that a good measure of fair chase? And then are these people, are they relying on the technology, as I was saying earlier? Are they relying on the technology to get that shot, or are they relying on the skill?
I think they go hand in hand because, as we know, and as Deputy Chief Martin Hicks showed us, we have a lot of wind in Wyoming. Knowing the wind, judging it, calculating for it, that requires a lot of skill. Technology cannot necessarily make that correction for you. It can give you an estimation of what to do, but it cannot make that for you. That comes with a lot of skill and practice if done responsibly. But we'll open chapter 2 tomorrow and see. I know that fair chase isn't in there as a defined term, but yeah, that is a great question. What is the definition of fair chase, and does that consist of a certain yardage, and then how do we enforce that?
Yeah, well, I would still say some of those systems with the different adjustments that they can make with wind speed and measurements and all of that, that's not a 30 caliber scope of 20 years ago. And I don't think you can argue that the technology from then is even comparable to now. And the fair chase that was occurring then is not occurring now.
Yep, Mr. President, I guess one of the, I appreciate that.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bell.
Sorry. Didn't even, I normally check to my left, never speak because, anyway, you're okay? Yeah. All right. Okay.
You can make the motion for SPEES as well if you'd like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, sorry. I guess, maybe following up a little bit with Commissioner Haskell's, conversation about this, I think there's your technology is not going to stop. We know that. And how do we regulate that, but also how do we enforce that? And I think there's a lot of things that we're going to continue to have to look at and be on top of this. And I guess this is probably, I don't even know if this is a question, but, asking for all of the organizations that we deal with from WWF to you, to outfitters, to our wardens, what kind of things are we seeing across the West and regulation that work? What are we seeing that is enforceable? What are we seeing that's practical, that, I think that's something that I'm not sure about yet. I haven't seen anybody bring something that says, other than a yardage thing, or a device that can't use thermal imaging. Well, now they don't look like thermal imaging, right? And so, I think having those conversations, we need to continue to have them. I think our department understands that enough to know we have to have those conversations, but I think we need help from your organization to actually get with legislators and our enforcement folks and some of the organizations to say, well, what makes sense? What can we bring that makes sense that we see right now happening, or we see in 2 years this is going to be a big problem. There's drones that might be able to carry one person, and we're going to have to deal with some of those kind of things. And so I think there's just a lot of different technologies that, and I did see that video. It's pretty crazy to watch that robot chase those boars across that parking lot. I can see somebody buying one of those and trying to get elk to come off of some property that they don't want it on or something like that. So I can see that some of those things could already be a problem. Now I think we have an enforcement mechanisms for something like that already, but the technology is going to continue to adapt and move forward, whether we do anything about it or not. So we're going to have to stay in tune with that. So I appreciate you bringing this.
Yes, and we are working with some other organizations, and as I said, we are working with some legislators to try to bring some of this together and take some of the best of what some of the other states have already done and present that.
Mr. President, sorry.
Mr. President. I really do appreciate your comments, and they're very thoughtful, and I'm going to steal your phrase about assistance versus replacement of skill. I'm going to steal that, just so you know.
It's true.
Because I think it is. The only comment I had was what you touched on in response to, I think, a question from Commissioner Bell. I can never quite tell if he's asking a question or not. Make sure you understand that the legislature has to weigh in and either give us the ability to regulate those things, or they need to do it. Because right now, we don't have the authority to do some of the things that we might vigorously debate up here. We just don't have the statutory authority. So you have an audience, an interested audience. You have a lot of game wardens and people who are very, very in tune with this issue. And we want to be involved in it and we want to participate in it. I just want to make sure you knew, got to get to the legislature. They're the ones who have to open the door and preferably, give us the authority to get in here and do anything. So
Appreciate it.
that's my comment, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for your attention and your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second. Sorry. Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you.